be using the muting system. Everybody is able to unmute themselves, but as per usual, anybody steps out of line, and if there's any carry on, I'll activate that system so that we can control it better. But at the minute, we're going to keep the muting system off. So without further ado, we'll go into tonight's agenda. And the first thing I will do, I will go to, I will take apologies, and I will go to the group leaders. And the first person I'll go to is Tommy Maguire for Sinn Féin. Tommy.
Good morning, Victor. Thanks for that. Just if I could notify IT that Councillor Seamus Green is having difficulty logging in on the new login system. And also Councillor McAffrey, I believe, is having difficulty with the new login system. So maybe we could just give a minute or two for them. But I'll proceed with the apologies, Victor. Councillor Anne-Marie Fitzgerald, Councillor Stephen McCann, and lateness apology from Councillor Dan Campbell. Good morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Tommy. Next, we'll go over to Councillor Robert Irvine.
Thanks very much, Chair. Victor, only one apology, Councillor Baird.
Okay, Councillor Paul Robinson.
Chair, Councillor Thompson here. Councillor Robinson's having difficulty getting on at the minute, so if that can be sorted out. And I'm not aware of any apologies at this minute in time. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, that's fine. Councillor Mary Gardy.
Evening, Chair. Thank you. Great to be back, Victor. No apologies this evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And now we'll go to the single member parties and independents. Does anybody know of any apologies from them? Okay, nothing in. Next, we will go to the minutes have been signed. Next, we will go to any matters arising.
Declarations, Chair.
Or declarations of interest, sorry. Sorry, my head. Thanks there. Thanks, Chair, for keeping me right. Declarations of interest. And the first up is Councillor Thomas O'Reilly.
Welcome back, Victor, and 5.5 FLT.
Okay, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you again, Chair, and you're very much welcome back, and it's good to see you looking so well. Declaration of interest. Declaration of interest 7.1, and is to do the PAN paper K. Thank you.
Okay, I'm not seeing the chamber at this stage, so I'll go to Mary Gardy, and then I'll go to the chamber.
Thank you, Chair. 7.1 again, the PAN for planning. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to the chamber. Come on ahead in. And all those who have declared their interest, can you lower your hands, please? Is there anybody in the chamber has any declarations of interest?
Yeah, Chair.
Do one of us need to sit up?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. 5.5 member of FLT also, please. Thank you.
Okay, there seems to be a lot of members having difficulty in accessing with this new WebEx system. I know Councillor McAffrey, Councillor Armstrong, who else have I seen? I've seen a couple other ones as well. So maybe if we can have a look at that, we'll hold back on going into any other business until we get that finalised. Councillor Irvine.
Yeah, thanks very much. 7.1 and 7.2.
Okay. Anybody else in the chamber there with a declaration of interest? there is Councillor Rainey. Obviously, is having difficulty in getting in as well. There seems to be a lot of problems here. So I know the system changed. So we'll maybe take a recess for 5 minutes to see if we can get the system sorted out and get these people in. So we'll take a recess now at 7:08 for 5 minutes.
Chair,
at item number 3, which was next person up was John Coyle.
7.1, Chair, member of the Planning Committee.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Deehan.
Thank you, Chair, and I'm glad to hear that you've made a good recovery from your accident. Declaration of interest in items 7.1 and 7.2 as a member of the Planning Committee, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. Welcome back again. 5.5 FLT and 7.1 planning.
Okay, thank you.
You're in
Councillor.
the chamber, Chair.
Okay, I'll go to Councillor McAffrey first, and then we'll go to the chamber.
Thank you, Chair. 7.1 planning as well.
Okay, we'll go to the chamber now.
Yeah, Gurmagada Caroline, good to see you back. 5.5 declaration of interest, just as a member of Fermanagh Lakeland Tourism. Gurmagad.
Okay, thank you. Who else is in the chamber there?
Tommy here, Victor Gurmagad.
Tommy.
5.7 as a director with bid. Gurmagad.
Okay.
And that's the end of the chamber, Chair.
Okay, Councillor McAleer.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, glad to get back into the meeting here now. Item 5.5 as a member of the Fermanagh Lakeland Tourism Board. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Don't see any more declarations of interest. If there's any more throughout the meeting, you can let us know. Just also, I had late correspondence with Councillor Wilson. He is he's had to bring a cow to the vet for emergency surgery. So if he's in, he's in. Councillor McAleer.
Just in terms of apologies, Chair, thanks for letting me back in. Councillor Eamon Keenan, I think with work commitments, he's trying to get in at some stage this evening, but he's not going to be here just for the start of the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on. That's declarations of interest. We will move on to matters arising. And we will go to the minutes of the last meeting, which my colleague Councillor McCloughy chaired for me, and we will go to page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9, page 10, page 11, page 12, page 13, page 14.
Chair.
Okay, go ahead.
Chair, thank you. It's Councillor Armstrong, page 13. Just seeking clarification from Director Boyle on the budget for the NECON stabilisation. We were sent an email from the Director of Corporate Services and Governance outlining the schedule of costs. I just wonder if he can comment on that, please.
Yes. Thank you, Chair, and good evening. Yeah, just in relation to the budget and the expenditure. The budget to date, up until the start of this financial year, was 350,000 spread over 2 years, the 2021 and the 21-22 year. In that period, and this is an updated figure in respect of the expenditure in relation to 21-22, there has been an actual update from what Celine had sent to members. We have actually spent a total of 299,000 of that budget of 350,000, and that is on studies before the work began on professional fees and on the actual stabilisation contract, and the work actually in undertaking vegetation control before that stabilisation work began. So that's what has went in the past. We have a further budget of 140,000 in this year's estimates for further work, and that is in relation to further vegetation control and for further stabilisation works. You know, we are hoping that we will be able to get match funding for some of this work, and to be able to lever some of that money in order to get additional funds in order to do work on the castle itself, whether it be from the Heritage Lottery Fund, the HED, or indeed from Landfill Communities Fund. And we're actually also sourcing private sector funding in relation to the work. Just in relation to the actual work itself, I suppose it is worthy to point out that the structure is a listed structure. There was, at the time when we began this work, a recommendation from H&D, in fact more than a recommendation, that urgent remedial work was required on the building, and that they were about to produce to the council an urgent works notice. So therefore we actually had no choice in the stabilisation work which took place. It is actually of the highest standard, I have to say, the work that has been done, and as reported at last month, it has been nominated for an award through the Chartered Institute of Surveyors, and you know, we are hoping that at some stage that it will be brought into use, not as a physical building itself, but maybe as a walkthrough, and to be able to see what actually happened in the castle in years gone past, and just to open it up from the back courtyard to the front door. Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
Chair, if I could comment, please. I think it's significant. It's come in under budget, the work, and particularly in a time when costs have been rising within the construction and building trade. So I would just say congratulations to the team there, I think, and the fact that it's been shortlisted for an award is a measure of the standard of work, and I have full confidence. I think it has. I think this has potential to become a significant tourism attractor in the district, and very welcome, as I'm always saying, in Urbanstown. So thank you, Chair.
Okay. Next hand up I see is Councillor McAffrey.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to welcome John's report there. I mean, it's anybody who regularly, like myself, who regularly visits that site. The work on the transformation on the castle has been unbelievable. To see the old 17th century building and the more modern 19th century building appearing from underneath all that ivy, and now to see it all been stabilised is amazing. And I mean, it's going to be a real feature for the area. People who haven't visited should visit it. The grounds are amazing, and to see the castle return to some form of site where it can actually be enjoyed is amazing. So it's to be congratulated for the work that's been carried out.
Okay, thank you, Councillor O'Coffey.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I have to say I find it quite staggering, frankly, that we are now in a situation whereby the entire Nican estate was effectively given to a private sector developer company for £20,000 for 288-acre site, when the cost to the ratepayer remained with the council. And if I'm hearing this right, we now have spent already £299,000, and we're now budgeting for a further £140,000. That's £439,000 we've spent on this castle. Maybe I've got the figures wrong, but it's still a colossal amount of money. Do we have any indication of future costs? Like, is there any estimate of how much stabilization for the next 10 years, for example, let alone the next 99 years of this lease, will cost the ratepayers. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, before I bring anybody else in, just to make it clear, Councillor O'Coffey, obviously the castle, and we knew this from the very start of Gardrum taking over Cairn, the castle was never included in that. And as John made clear there, those directions came down from HED to say that it had to be stabilised and other works done. So, you know, we don't want to keep going round and roundabouts on this, and it seems to be that that's what we do. We all know you were not happy with the fact that we let this building out to a private company, but from what I can hear, and I have a lot of friends and relations in the Irvinstown area, the work that has went on there, the transformation that has went on in the sites has been fantastic and has been welcomed by everyone. And certainly that is something that we need to remember, that the work is on. Councillor McAffrey, I will let you back in again, but very, very briefly, please, because I'm not going to start getting into this. Wasn't on a matter arising, so I'm not going to dwell on it any further.
I think maybe Councillor Coffey's claiming there's 280 acres, but most of that's in standing trees. It's very little. There's very little of that land is actually any agricultural use. And if he cares to, I can arrange to take him and we'll have a walk around. I might even treat him to a coffee afterwards, and I'll point out all the improvements that have been carried out by the leasee, and then also how good the castle is, and give him a good history talk as well. I have a good knowledge of that estate.
Okay, thank you. Right, we're ending it there. There's going to be no more debate on that. We'll go back to the agenda again. We were on page 13, page 14, page 15, page 16, page 17, page 18.
Chair, just in relation to page 17, if I can possibly come in.
Yeah.
Chair, yes, there is correspondence at 4.1 of the agenda from the Department of Finance in relation to free school meals. And Chair, if you will also allow maybe to take items 9.1 of correspondence and 9.5 of correspondence in relation to the same issue.
Okay.
4.1 is where the Department of Finance again states to the Council that it has no real role in free school meals policy, and that this matter is a matter for the Department of Education. In 9.5 of correspondence on tonight's agenda, there is a response from the Education Authority in relation to the verification of applications for free school meals. They talk about the system used and the verification process and the process that they have to go through in order to verify the applicability of individual claimants, and the role that the Department for Communities has to play in that respect also, and highlight that they're continually developing and improving the online system to ensure that the application process is speeded up, and it is hoped that they'll make enhancements to the system for this coming year that will help the parents and the EEA in processing the applications in a more timely fashion. At 9.1 of the agenda, Chair, there are 4 items of correspondence from 4 councils in relation to their support for the universal free school meals for all children, and that is from North Down and Ards, from Newry and Mourne, from Armagh, Banbridge and Craigavon, and from Derry City and Strabane, and they do state their support for the proposal, the resolution from our council in relation to universal free school meals, except for Newry and Mourne, who state that the free school payment scheme, that they support the scheme that was introduced throughout COVID, and call for it to be reinstated for those families most in need. So it's not a universal support for free school meals, which was the resolution of this council. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you for that. Before I bring in the first speaker, could call in user number 2 please identify themselves?
Hello, Councillor Sean Clark here.
Okay, Sean, thank you. Next, we will go to Councillor McAleer.
Thank you, Chair, yeah, and thanks for that run through there, John. I'm happy enough to propose the noting of the correspondence that we've received here and the various points stated. And furthermore on that, just I'd like to just go back. I'm not going to go back to the EA again because I think it's like banging our heads against the wall here. We're not getting questions answered, or the key issues kind of being avoided. But there's an interesting paragraph in the middle of the letter, which I don't know if it's trying to apportion blame to someone else or trying to pass the buck, but there's certainly insinuations along those lines when they talk about the input in the Department for Communities in terms of confirming some of the benefit status of claimants. So I'd like to propose just that we do contact the DFC just to, first of all, I suppose, clarify if they're aware of any delays in relation to the evidence or the input that they've been asked to give and respond to the DA or to the EA as outlined in that. And secondly, then just to clarify that, as noted, I suppose further down in the letter, that measures or practices are being taken in to improve or to streamline or to make that more efficient during the summer, so that we'll not be witnessing those again in the 2022-23 academic year. And just as John alluded to there, I would like to just go back to Newry Morning Down Council and propose that we do get back to them just to clarify the difference between their response and what we were actually proposing, because I think the proposal that we had put forward is a much better and a much stronger proposal. It's an all-encompassing one, and as has been discussed on numerous occasions within the chamber, it's one that stands to save money in the long run in terms of workforce and bureaucracy and red tape and that. So I think we need to go back to them on that. But I'm delighted to see that we have support from the other councils, and hopefully it'll not be too long before the outstanding councils respond in kind. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we have Councillor O'Coffey.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm happy to second those proposals from Councillor McAleer. I think it's very welcome that we now have these other councils now coming in behind what we've proposed. I think it's also welcome that we have, I think, cross-party support growing at this point on this issue. I think there are clear benefits. And as Councillor McAleer has just highlighted there, the universal nature of this will actually result in considerable economies and efficiencies. And the sort of issues that we're seeing in the response of 9.5 would be avoided, because there would be no stigma and there would be no necessary checks and hurdles put in the way of children accessing this support. So I think it's all positive. I think it's also important to note, in particular, the contribution of Unison, the union, which I think has fought an exceptionally strong campaign on this issue for a number of years now. And I think it's about to bear fruit. So I certainly would applaud their commitment and tenacity. So happy to second this, and hopefully this will continue and we'll get a result of this with the new executive whenever it formed.
Okay, Councillor O'Coffey. Next up, we have Councillor Dayton.
Thank you, Chair, and I want to thank John for his report and speak in support of Councillor McAleer's proposal. I have no doubt in my own mind, Chair, that universal free school meals should be implemented throughout our entire region. I think that the evidence that good nutrition plays a vital role in the development of children, and in particular their ability to concentrate and learn in school, At present, the administration of the free school meal system is cumbersome and inconvenient for many families. And as we saw last academic year, many families were severely disadvantaged through delays in making their online applications. And I agree with Councillor O'Coffey that universal free school meals would reduce the stigma as well as the administrative burden. And I think it would be a very positive step forward in addressing food poverty within our region and within our district council area. So happy to support Councillor McAleer's proposal. Chair, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we have Councillor McElduff.
Yeah, just very briefly, Chair. We've had a number of educational-based discussions, you know, variously at committees and subcommittees within the council and community partnerships. Just to remind the council that there's a very, very strong link between social deprivation and educational underachievement. And sometimes that social deprivation is measured by your entitlement or otherwise to free school meals. But more and more people are under financial pressure as a result of the rising cost of living. And there's a strong link here to educational underachievement. So we need to keep that on our sidelines as well. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Chris McAffrey.
Thank you, Chair. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I'm just after getting in here. I had some technical issues, but no, just to concur with what's been said, and particularly with my colleague Councillor McElduff there. I think that universal free school meals would be a great way of reducing any stigma around this scheme, because the scheme is there for the benefit of the children and of course their families. But again, just from my own experience working in the education sector, and I work in both primary and secondary school sectors, and I see firsthand the real practical benefit that this scheme has with on children's lives and their performance in school. But even just, I think, in terms of giving them structure and allowing them, that's one less concern that their families may have, or one less concern they may have coming to school. Kids can have all kinds of feelings when they're coming into a classroom. It can be anxiety, it can be lots of different things. And I really believe this would be a progressive means to I suppose make the free school meals universal and have that benefit for everyone. But I'll just leave it there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there any speakers in the chamber that wants to come in on this item?
No speakers in the chamber, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll go back to the matters arising again, and we are on page 17. Page 18. Page 19. And that's it. Okay. We will now move on to the reports for consideration. And the first one up is number 5.1, is the pre-draft consultation and preparation of a new County Donegal development plan, paper A. It's over to Kim.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So this paper sets out a report which provides members with a review of the pre-draft public consultation issues and options paper, which has been published as part of County Donegal's development plan for 2024 to 2030, and the paper is attached at Appendix 1. Further information on the purpose and content of that plan, together with issue papers, can be accessed at the link provided at paragraph 1.2. The paper sets out some of the key development issues facing Donegal across a range of different topic areas. The majority of the key issues and questions raised are specific to the Donegal County Council area and are strategic in nature. As a result, it's difficult to clearly identify implications for the Fermanagh and Omagh District Council area at this point, but it's recognised that many of the challenges faced by Donegal are similar to those identified in our district, particularly due to the rural nature of both districts. Key issues include, in relation to economic development and urban regeneration, are high levels of commercial vacancies, changing nature of town centres, the need for strategic service land initiatives to facilitate economic development, particularly in border locations, and lack of poor quality pedestrian and cycling infrastructure and green and blue infrastructure. The paper goes on to give more detail in the paragraphs to 2.15 in relation to some of the points, Chair, and it's recommended that the Council agrees to submit comments to Donegal County Council reflecting the views outlined in the report at paragraphs 2.3 to 2.15.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor McAleer.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, happy enough to note, but just in relation to the content of it, scanning through the report that's been presented to us from Donegal County Council, there's some very interesting issues, and as Kim's rightly saying, things that relate or remind us of our own development plan. Particularly, I suppose, in my own area, there's things like national or natural heritage, habitats and species. There's specific reference to climate change, I suppose, which unfortunately was something maybe wasn't completely covered in our own LDP, but as we've the ability, I suppose, to go back and amend that following publication, that's something we can look at. In relation, I suppose, specifically to a couple of the points that are raised, 2.11, it talks about the impact of turbines, but it doesn't make specific reference to, I suppose, the health impact, be that physical and mental, on people living within set distances. It talks about other issues around turbines, but I think that's something that should be considered, and I would encourage it to be considered as part of our response. I think the idea in 2.13 in terms of collaborative tourism projects is definitely something that we can get behind as a county, a neighbouring county of Donegal. But I was surprised too to notice that there's only a fleeting reference on, well, 2 pages, I think I counted, the mica crisis, and I think that's something that absolutely needs to be addressed, probably a wee bit more front and centre in relation to the development plan and how that's going to be remedied and dealt with. And finally, I suppose page 12 of Appendix 1 talks about, again, the natural and built heritage. But there's, I suppose, whilst talk of protections, I'm aware parts of Donegal, particularly up around Inishowen, where the land is under threat for extractivism, be that asphalt or gold mining. And again, that's something that could probably be highlighted, probably a wee bit more, and guarded against, because I know that the local communities in that particular area are very opposed and very concerned about what's going on there. So happy enough to note, but I would appreciate if those few pieces could be taken on board as well when we're making a return correspondence to the Donegal County Council. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McElduff.
Thank you, Chair. And I had expected, Chair, to see in the economic development section something that appears otherwise in the urban regeneration section. I'm particularly interested in, and I think we should be as a council, in Donegal's development of remote working hubs, to reflect again the rurality of our district, and villages and other rural settlements might prosper in the future with local remote working opportunities and remote working hubs. So one thing I'd propose is an informal meeting between the two councils or representatives of the councils to discuss their advanced remote working hub strategy. And again, within OMA Enterprise Company, we often hear that they have a very good strategy for remote working hubs. I think that would benefit the rural parts of our district. So there's one, and I do make a proposal that we seek an informal meeting in the future with Donegal specifically on that subject. And then I don't think there's any reference, correct me if I'm wrong, Chair, to the A5, specifically to the A5 Western Transport Corridor, because in the same way that we would be lobbying Stormont and the Department for Infrastructure, Donegal County Council has a strong track record of lobbying in the Oireachtas. I remember when Michael McClune was the county manager, they met 8 ministers in one day lobbying for the A5. So with that in common, and Finally, just interesting section on the Gaeltacht, and maybe just to note that young people from our district and adults who learn Irish benefit hugely from going to the Gaeltacht area of Donegal, and hoping to see the revitalisation of courses in the Gaeltacht district, which would attract people from our council area. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, no problem. Next up, we have Councillor Dayton.
Thank you, Chair. I too, Chair, found this to be a very interesting document, and it's always interesting to see how the approach of a council like Donegal would sort of marry with our own community plans and local development plans. One issue that I feel that they have not addressed, which I would like to see in our response, is the issue of health provision. And this could come under the section of communities. And they do state quite rightly that health and well-being is one of their objectives. We had a discussion in council recently about primary care provision and the potential for attracting GPs from across the border. We have seen the success of the Northwest Cancer Centre, which provides cancer treatment for patients in Donegal, as well as in our own area. So I think, and we are familiar as well with the excellent work which is done by COT, cooperation and working together. But I think that there is huge potential for cross-border cooperation in terms of healthcare initiatives, particularly in the community sector and primary care sector, but also in the provision of hospital services. And I think that in the Southwest Acute Hospital, we have a fantastic facility there which could be used to deliver healthcare to the people of the border areas, including Donegal. So I would like to propose that we would include a reference to those points in our response, Chair. Thank you.
Speaker in the chamber, Chair.
Gurmagad Carley. Can the chair hear me?
Go ahead, Siobhan.
Yeah, Gurmagad. Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a few points as well, and just first of all, just to second Corey McElduff's proposal there for a meeting with Donegal County Council just to share their experience around the remote working hubs. I think they're apparently doing a great job there, so maybe a bit of learning for us. Probably just to echo some of the points, I think it is important that we do have in there the importance of the Gaeltacht to people in this district as well, and just to acknowledge that and welcome that they're outlining it. On the tourism cooperation, I know we have the Donegal and the Fermanagh Noma working group, and we've a workshop this week, and tourism is one of those areas that we are prioritising and working in cooperation. So I think that's noted, around the collaboration there in the report. So thanks for that, Kim. Agree with Councillor Dean there just around the health provision, and particularly, we're talking about, strengthening healthcare. We're facing the same issues, and particularly around the border area, the wider border area. So anything that can be done, any opportunities to work together and strengthen that for the benefit of people just around the entire area, I think should be included. So if that needs a seconder, I'll also second Collier Dean's proposal. Just on the wastewater, though, which we'll be visiting later on the agenda as well, and Donegal County Council having the same issues with us and those threats then to sustainability of rural communities. maybe, and I know it isn't within our remit, I know that as a council, but perhaps just to have some kind of response in there that they might explore more joined up way of working in terms of wastewater as well. We've talked about this in previous meetings here, and we have two systems working back to back. The worst impacted, certainly some of the towns and villages I'm looking at, you know, I think there could be big improvements made here in Fermanagh and likewise in Donegal if some of those systems were actually a bit more joined up. So that might be something to note in our response as well, and I'll propose that, Chair. Gormagat.
Okay, next up we have Councillor Matthew Bell.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to speak in support of Councillor McElduff's proposals around meeting County Donegal Council to meet and discuss the remote learning. Barry's absolutely right. This is something that's came up a few times in Home Enterprise, and I don't want to speak on behalf of the other board members, but the feeling I've certainly gotten is that there's great potential for towns like Oma, and I'm sure the same can be applied to Enniskillen to kind of create it as a centre of remote learning. We often talk about brain drain on this council, and it's definitely a strategy we're going to have to develop as one of our means to tackle brain drain within the district. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Anthony Feely.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I was going to come in to second Barry's proposal there too, was already be second, but I'll second Siobhan's proposal there about the wastewater there. No, I was reading through this, I see a lot of similarities with our own council here, and I see on 2.14 about the greenways and blue cycleways and that. And as Siobhan said, that we do our council as the working with Donegal County Council, and a lot of these does be discussed at it, which is very useful as well. So I just I'm glad to see that up on here tonight. So I just want to second Siobhan's proposal. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, Councillor O'Coffey.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just first of all, the second proposal from Councillor McAleer. I also want to support the point made by Councillor Deehan. It is something I think we need to look into, how Southwest Acute Hospital, unlike Altnagelvin, is unable to receive and treat patients who are insured in different ways from the Republic of Ireland. So it is having a huge impact, because my understanding is that the business model underpinning the Southwest Acute Hospital was always predicated on significant cross-border utilization, and this has never really translated into reality. And it's always inexplicable. It's justified in the basis of no demand. But it would be useful perhaps to see if Donegal County Council would agree that there is actually a need for this cross-border utilization. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you,
Chair, Councillor Irvine here.
Okay.
I don't think anybody has actually proposed the recommendations that are outlined. In other words, that the staff reply as outlined in 2.3 to 2.15. I know there have been additional comments made, but we need to actually authorize the officers to reply. And that includes any additional comments that have been made by previous speakers. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, can I have a seconder for that, please?
Yes, Gormagat Carley, I'm here in the chamber. I'll second that with the additions.
Okay, Kim, are you happy enough that overall proposal covers the additional proposals, and second from
Yes.
it does?
Yes, Chair,
Okay,
we're covered.
that's great. Okay, we'll move on to next item, which is 5.2, which is the Department for Infrastructure DFI consultation paper on proposals to amend legislation to improve water flooding and drainage legislation. 5.2.
Thank you, Chair. So Department for Infrastructure has published a consultation paper on its proposals to amend legislation, and this is around our water, flooding and sustainable drainage legislation. Consultation considers how legislation can be amended to reduce pollution in watercourses, strengthen resilience against extreme weather events, and introduce more sustainable, environmentally friendly and green solutions. And there's a link to the document provided. So this report provides an outline draft response to the consultation for consideration and approval. The consultation focuses on 9 key policy areas where the department considers that policy could benefit from change, including additional powers, rectifying legislative loopholes and strengthening existing powers. At paragraph 2.2, we've outlined the key areas where views are sought, and members will be aware in relation to our own draft plan strategy and policy FLDO3 around using sustainable drainage systems, that this requires that all development proposals must, where practicable, include proposals for sustainable drainage systems. So it's the Council's intention that once the LDP draft plan strategy has been adopted, the Council will then consult upon supplementary planning guidance on SUDs. So the consultation lists a number of questions for which responses are set out within Appendix 1, and input has been sought from a range of officers, including our Climate Change and Sustainable Development Officer, in drafting the responses. Officers are largely in agreement with the proposals set out, with only question 2 raising an issue in relation to access by Northern Ireland Water onto land to enable it to carry out works. And officers have indicated that such access should be notified to and be in agreement with all the relevant landowners. It's also suggested within the response to question 3 that further clarification of the future arrangements is provided, and that these should include the legislative provision for formal adoption of SUDs by NI Water and by DFI. So the recommendation is that the Council approves the final draft response to the public consultation as set out in Appendix 1.
Okay, thank you, Kim. First up, Councillor O'Coffey.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think that this is an interesting proposal to change the legislation around these matters. It is an open question, I think, the enforcement of it. Our experience as a council, I'm sure everyone would agree, is that Northern Ireland Water's enforcement tends to fall far below where it should be on many of these matters around water pollution. We are aware that all major watercourses in Northern Ireland are now increasingly polluted as a result. And indeed, we also are very well aware that there is a heightened probability of further extreme weather events, including flooding events, which have a fairly catastrophic and huge cost to society in general. I haven't said that. I think that the response that we are preparing, I'm not totally convinced of the opposition that we're putting to the 2 first bullet points. The first one is really over whether a hosepipe ban should only be enforced on householders. I don't see why businesses shouldn't have to take some responsibility for their use of water. Why is it that private gardeners have to take such responsibility? It seems to me that ordinary folk shouldn't have to curtail water use when businesses are allowed to go on as business as usual. So I'm not agreed with that. So I'd like to propose that we would take maybe a more open approach to that and not come out strongly in opposition. I think it's not clear. We need to have further details of what's involved. And let's be honest, I don't think Northern Ireland Water will be too onerous in terms of their enforcement of these provisions. And the second point really is around the ability of Northern Ireland Water to carry out essential work or work on private land without permission, and then would not be required to maintain these works at public expense. Now, I would be against that if it was removing something from the responsibility of the public sector. But it is quite possible that the works maintained may actually accrue benefit to a private sector owner or property owner, property developer or whatever. I don't see why all of that should reside with the public purse. And equally, given the likelihood of quite cataclysmic flooding events coming at us because of a refusal to do anything about climate change, I think it's actually important that we do have the powers to within Northern Ireland Water to actually do something about reducing overflow of water. So again, I think we should not be so strong as to completely oppose these things. I think we need to see the detail of what's involved. But again, I would just highlight, I don't think Northern Ireland Water will be running around trying to enforce works on private landowners willy-nilly. This will be probably something that will be an extreme condition and an extreme circumstance. So I'm happy to propose to accept all of this, bar those 2 points. I think we need to be slightly more circumspect on. Thank you, Chair.
Speaker in the chamber, Chair.
Sorry. Okay,
The Speaker in the chamber.
Okay, we'll go to Councillor McAleer first.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I suppose in the aftermath of the quite shocking Water Framework Directive statistics report that we received at the end of last year, the urgency to act to stop pollution and to refuse to allow water polluting projects in the future and take management of water, which is in essence our most vital resource, seriously, shouldn't be beyond question at this stage. And I think the lack of a robust independent environmental protection agency and the continued failure to adopt a joined up approach means that the proposed legislation is unfortunately getting off to a pretty poor start. I think any legislation needs to include measures for protection of our rivers from polluting industry, and also measures to ensure that the planning process catches and stops environmentally destructive projects, and that's both in terms of water demand and polluted wastewater discharge. I think it's interesting, as Councillor O'Coffey quite rightly notes, that it's proposed to move against individual homeowners as opposed to those big businesses that can be much more polluting and much more devastating. So I would share Councillor O'Coffey's opinion on that, and I think that's something that needs to be addressed and redressed within our response. And again, there's mention too of enhanced powers for NI Water to deal with drain and sewer misconnections. Now, a misconnection is when a source of foul water, much like a washing machine, is incorrectly connected to a stormwater drain, which can lead to polluted water contaminating whatever waterways are around there. Currently, they have the powers to disconnect and prosecute the owner of the property where this has occurred, but it can't repair the misconnection and recover the cost unless the owner consents. And it's considered that an option for NI Water to repair the misconnection and recover the costs should be available, which would enable quicker remedial action to be taken and prevent pollution. It's considered that such environmentally critical work should not be dependent on the owner's permission. So I suppose I'm happy to support the proposals and second the proposals made by Councillor O'Coffey, but I think I would like to make a further proposal that it might be an idea to invite the officials involved in drafting this document to meet and discuss the draft with the councillors and with the officials. So I'd like to just make that as a secondary proposal, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to the chamber.
Yeah, Gurmagad Kerley, I'd just like to thank Kim for the report and to propose the recommendations as outlined. I take some of the points that are being made there. I'm just not sure that some of them are entirely relevant, since it is talking about improving water flooding and sustainable drainage, and it is really around those type of things that didn't go into anything to do really with pollution or otherwise. I think the first point, you know, the list of activities, I think that's fine. I think the difficulty around hose pipe bans on businesses, when you get into agri-food business that depend on, you know, we need food to survive. When you think about maybe plant nurseries and other businesses, and I just note too that you know, businesses would have water metered and pay bills for it, so it's within, I would say, very much in their interest to limit that. In any case, I take the points on the heavier use of using industries on water, but bearing in mind that some of those industries are actually industries that are feeding us. The point that's made at point 2, and the reason the council doesn't support the proposal around the power of entry onto land, I think, you know, the point that is being made here is there's no information around support or proposal that NI Water would be then maintaining those things that they may be going on to land. So I think you could be supportive if there was maybe some more detail around that, and whether there was confirmation that they would actually then maintain anything that they put in place. I really welcome the SUDs, actually, the Sustainable Drainage Solutions, and members will know I had kind of brought this through LDP. And I think that was because the Department for Infrastructure has always been looking at this in the wrong way in trying to deal with flooding and drainage issues, actually where the flooding and issues are taking place, rather than dealing with it as a whole catchment issue. So I'm really, really welcome the work that's been done there, and actually the response, which is detailed, and a lot of work that's been done by our own council and our own LDP team in trying to formulate guidance, and what that would look like, and support, the point that's being made there that, we can't do that on our own. We need some departmental input as well. There is just one thing under point 3, just it's in paragraph 1. And it's just a typo there, that the council understands there is confusion around the use of sustainable urban drainage systems, and urban isn't in there. It's just sustainable drainage systems. So that's me, Chair. I'm happy to propose the recommendations as outlined just with that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor O'Coffey, you're looking back in again. If I let you in, it's going to be very, very, very brief.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just, I think Councillor Curry raises some useful comments there. I do accept some of what she says there, but I don't necessarily agree with two points, which is really one, that this is not related to pollution. A lot of pollution incidents are due to overflows at CSOs, especially in rural areas, and this is caused by inadequate investment in precisely the sort of thing as SUDs. I also note that the comment from the council is that we're actually standing over restricting SUDs, as they may sterilise the land involved for future development. So that's the sort of problem I have there. And finally, the other point just around, it's not just, I have no issue with food producers obviously retaining use of water, but an increasing user of water is data centers. And we all know what they're doing with huge colossal profits, and why are they used to consume such vast volumes of water when everyone else is required to conserve water. So I'm not content really to stand back from some of my comments, but I think certainly some of the points raised by Councillor Curry could be adopted into them. But thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Anne-Marie Donnelly.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Donnelly.
I got cut off there. Sorry, I've just come in to second the recommendations as proposed there by Siobhan.
Okay. Well, we have conflicting proposals. I'll just go to Emmett's proposal that we as a council meet with the authority, and that has been seconded, I take it, by Councillor O'Coffey. Moving forward on this, Kim, would you agree that those will have conflicting proposals?
Yes, Chair, we have a proposal to meet with officials, and I'm not sure if that one has been seconded at this point.
It has been seconded by Councillor O'Coffey.
Okay, so
is everybody agreed?
We could maybe take that one first, yes.
Right, is everybody agreed that we meet with the authority as a council? Okay, we then have the proposal by Emmett, seconded by proposal by Donald, seconded by Emmett, that we go back but make some changes to our response. Is everybody agreed with that?
Not in the chamber anyway.
Okay, I'm sensing some disagreement. Okay, Kim, before we go to the second proposal of the recommendations, I am going to ask IT to set up a vote on WebEx and in the chamber for the proposal by Councillor O'Coffey, seconded by Councillor McAleer. So IT, if you can set up that, please, and we'll go for a vote on that. Okay, the vote is now up, and you have a minute to vote on WebEx and in the chamber on Councillor O'Coffey's proposal. Okay, time is up. The
Okay,
vote.
Chair, so the
Okay.
vote is 3 for, 25 against, and 1 abstention. So the vote falls, or the
vote
proposal
falls. So that means Councillor Siobhan's proposal and seconded by Anne Marie is passed. Okay, thank you. We will move on to item 5.3, which is the COVID Recovery Small Settlements Regeneration Programme, Paper C. Back to Kim.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So this report provides an update on the arrangements for delivery of the COVID Recovery Small Settlements Programme based on the previously agreed plan, which included 4 elements. So delivery of the 11 previously agreed village renewal projects, delivery of additional projects through a further call for town village enhancement schemes, a site frontage scheme and a vacant to occupied scheme. So just in terms of each of those elements, so scheme 1 is the approved village renewal and enhancement projects. There are 11 projects which are considered eligible to progress with project values ranging from 30,000 to 200,000. And there's an overall capital budget of 1.34 million for this element. Council officers have met with the successful village applicants and are progressing the delivery of all 11 projects, including procurement of external support, and the anticipated completion date then is 31st of March 2023. The second element then is the open call for town village renewal enhancement projects. So this will be aligned to scheme 1 above, and it's aimed at regenerating settlements with populations below 5,000. Provides an opportunity to fund a number of those small settlement projects that are already well developed and assist settlements to recover from the pandemic, with an overall budget of £417,770. We will progress to invite expressions of interest from eligible community organisations for capital projects that could commence by September of this year and complete in March 2023, with a call for expressions of interest opening on the 1st of June and closing on the 30th of June. There's a range of indicative actions outlined at the bottom of page 2 that may be funded, and it's anticipated there will be a spread of projects across settlements outside the towns of Omagh and Enniskillen, and projects will be scored in rank order within the DEA. Funding will be administered by the Council, and we anticipate we'll be able to support up to 8 standalone projects under this strand, with project funding between 50,000 minimum up to 100,000 maximum, and that includes a 10% match funding contribution from the Council. Scheme 3 then is a vacant to occupied scheme, and it's aimed at encouraging owners of vacant commercial premises to invest in their buildings and improve the aesthetics of the town or settlement, to attract tenants to those properties, reduce long-term vacancy and create local employment. The scheme has an overall budget of 400,000. We will invite applications from eligible property and lease owners and leaseholders, and the aim is to make ready properties for immediate commercial use, and applications will be sought through the grants management system. Projects also must be complete by March 2023. We will assess a number of areas through the application process as outlined at paragraph 232, and again projects will be scored in rank order within their DEA. We will do a public call for applications then on the 1st of June, with the closing date then of the 30th of June. The final element then is a site frontage scheme. This scheme is aimed at regenerating settlements again with populations below 5,000. We will invite expressions of interest again from property owners and leaseholders, and it's to revitalise derelict commercial properties and gap sites by providing some funding for those aesthetic enhancements. The maximum amount available then is £1,000 for each application at a rate of 90% per project, with a 10% match requirement. We aim to identify and prioritise at least 2 village settlements for intervention in terms of highest need. And then, in line with the requirements of the funding policy, applications will be received, which are received for schemes 2, 3 and 4 will be assessed by officers, and recommendations will be brought through the Council's grant aid panel for scrutiny and endorsement, following which an assessment report will then be tabled for approval at a future meeting of the committee. So it's recommended that Council notes the update provided on the 4 schemes to be progressed within the Small Settlements Programme, and approves the proposed approach to invite and assess expressions of interest and applications for schemes 2, 3 and 4, with a closing date of Thursday the 30th of June.
Thank you, Kim. First up, we have Councillor Armstrong in the chamber.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is significant to see the schemes listed, and thank you, Kim, for the report. I think this will inject considerable vitality back into towns, into smaller towns and villages. So I welcome the report, and in particular, as a councillor from Erin North, I'd like to sort of mention Cashbridge, which has long been a blight, but welcome very much the work that has been done to achieve the funding. This is a significant transport corridor, and this will assist the village on what has been a problem for really since I've become a councillor in 2016. It's also good to see Ederney and Belicks Marina and any of the settlements receiving that funding. So I'd really like to support the recommendations and thank directors involved in bringing this to council. Thank you. Propose.
Thank you. Councillor Blake.
Thank you, Chair. I hope I'm not taking you away from your dinner, but I'm happy to second the recommendations.
Reality grapes.
I'm happy to second the recommendations. I think it's something like this is long overdue for our towns and villages to rejuvenate them and make them more attractive proposition for tenants and leaseholders to come in. So I'd be delighted to second the recommendations.
Okay, thank you. Councillor O'Coffey.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Obviously, it's a very welcome development. I'm just struck by the references there to the village plan and the 11 previously approved village renewal projects. My understanding is that these are not publicly available, so I'm wondering if I could just request that the village plans upon which these proposals are to be developed and upon which these are to go forward, can these be made public in some way on the council website? I think would be very useful for people to actually see what are the proposals in each of the areas, so that they could better inform themselves of what's about, what's been discussed, and then maybe come up with some additional ideas and plans of their own. Thank you, Chair.
Sure. Able to be done. Councillor McAleer.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure if it's just me, but I don't know if your headset slipped or something, but it's very faint just hearing you.
Sorry, I'm stuffing my face.
You're munching away, no worries. No, I'm happy enough to support that call from Donal. I think that is good. I appreciate that I did make contact with the director, and she did give me a bit more information in relation to the project up in Carrickmore, which obviously I welcome. I suppose as a mid-Tyrone DEA representative, the fact that 3 of the 11 are Tyrone projects and the remaining 8 are Fermanagh ones, I suppose, encourage as best we can to try and redress that imbalance across the district, and hopefully with a bit more promotion we could actually get a few more towns and villages represented in the Tyrone end of the district as well, because there is money available to implement these kind of schemes. So it would be great to see more towns and villages locally taking that up. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
In the chamber, Chair.
Chamber. Okay.
Yes, Gurmagad Carley, thank you. And it is just to welcome it and thank Kim and the team for the work they did. It is significant. £1,340,000 going into our smaller towns and villages, I think will, have a big impact on our towns and villages out in the rural areas. And just like Councillor Armstrong, just to welcome the works that are proposed for Earn North, Ederney, Balik. I think that'd be great. The marina at Balik, something happening there, that's great. And the bridge at Kesh, which has been just a long ongoing issue. And just to point out, I suppose, maybe not keeping up, but as I understand it, these did come from a list that hadn't been successful through the lag process. The criteria for this were slightly different, and I know we're addressing that later on as well with some other funding. But these were stacked and ready to go, and I think that just confirms and reiterates the importance of having projects ready to go, because there is a tight turnaround on these. So I think that's why these particular projects are on the list and not any parochial reasons. Okay, Gurmagad.
Okay, thank you. There's no more speakers indicating. So you've heard it proposed and seconded. We accept the recommendations. Is everybody happy with that? Okay, thank you. We'll move on now to item 5.4, paper D, which is Strategic Capital Grants Programme. Back to Kevin.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So the purpose of this report then is to advise on the approach to progressing our Strategic Capital Projects Grant Programme for 22 to 24. And the Council has previously agreed that 3 village renewal projects which were ineligible under the Small Settlements Programme would be supported through the Strategic Capital Grant Programme. And those 3 projects are at Cannolly, Brookborough and Greencastle. It's proposed then that the remaining fund would be open to applications from community groups for strategic capital projects within the district, which can be delivered by 31st of March 2024. We have been working in preparation for a call on guidance notes, which have been prepared at Appendix 1, in order to ensure that projects are more strategic in nature and to ensure that we get the best value from this fund in terms of social, economic and environmental outcomes. We will provide capital funding of between £100,000 and £200,000, with organisations required to match fund in terms of a financial contribution to a minimum value of 10% of the grant awarded. Applicants will be required to submit an application form outlining some initial eligibility information, and then follow-up information must be confirmed by 30th of September 2022. So further to an assessment exercise, successful applicants will be issued with a Stage 1 letter of offer towards technical assistance. So initially we will provide a letter of offer for £5,000 as the entry point to enable projects to go through a pre-development and readiness stage to ensure that they can be delivered in terms of the programme timelines and criteria. And then on successful delivery of that technical assistance stage, a Stage 2 letter of offer will then be issued to commence and deliver the full capital project. And all of those recommendations will be presented through the Council's Grant Aid Panel and subsequently through to the Regeneration Community Committee for approval. It's anticipated that we would open that call for expressions of interest on Friday the 8th of July, and then, no, apologies, open on 15th of June with a closing date of Friday the 8th of July, and all projects to be completed by March 2024. We are pursuing discussions with each of the three groups who were pre-approved in respect of the village renewal projects to ascertain the status of those projects and to progress towards letters of offer. However, in the event that any of the three identified and agreed projects cannot proceed for any reason, funding will remain within the overall funding envelope for award through the application process. In those circumstances, the affected group would then be eligible to submit an application as part of the open call for an alternative project proposal. In terms of finances, we did identify a positive variance in revenue budgets at year-end 2021-22, and funding of a maximum of 1.2 million could be allocated. Our officers in corporate services and governance are currently working on the year-end accounts and will be presenting a report to Policy and Resources in June on the year-end position, and at that point we would wish to confirm the indicative fund available, which may be subject to change relating to the outcomes of that year-end financial position, but that will be reported in full in terms of the June report to the Policy and Resources Committee. This is also a non-recurring allocation, and successful applications will be required to provide match funding of 10%. So it's recommended that the capital projects grant programme delivery methodology, timeframes and guidance notes are agreed as outlined, and we progress to seek expressions of interest as outlined also.
Okay, thank you, Kim. Councillor O'Coffey.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I note really my main issue around this is that this 1.2 million has been arrived at as a result of, as it's called, a positive variance, i.e. a revenue surplus in the year 2021-22, and I think it was of the opinion some of us anyway were thinking that that might have been better used for a rates freeze, but in any case, we are now allocating it to a program which is called a Strategic Capital Projects Grant Program, which basically the council is going to give this money to applicants, and the applicants are well, the first three applicants named are the obviously three GA clubs, but I just wonder really what is the meaning of that strategic if the things we're sort of investing in here is walkways and the like. I've no major issue around strategic projects, but I'm wondering, is there would it not be better if we are to invest money in a strategic capital program that we would actually seek to do so in a more planned manner? £1.2 million is a lot of money. I also note that the applicant process does not include any reference to socioeconomic deprivation or impact on poverty. We all know, well, the reality of poverty in our society this time. The rates increase is going through right now. People can see it in the rates bills. But how would this money be better used if we were to give it to sporting organisations? How can we ensure that this will actually benefit the most poverty-stricken in our society? That's what my question is. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we have Councillor Chris McAffrey.
Gormagat, Carly, thank you, Chair. It's just to come into response to Councillor O'Coffey there, because I can understand the point he's coming from, but like, for example, in a football club, which is at the heart of community, GA is at the heart of each community that they're based in. I know, for example, our local school, we bring the children to the running track regularly. For after school activities, football lessons are taken there. They offer so much value to the local community. I actually can't believe that that's the line of question he went down, questioning the strategic impact that these projects could or would have. I believe it's a great thing that we're able to reinvest this money back into our communities from whatever part of the community they're from, whether it's football clubs or other things. But I just find, I suppose, that last commentary a wee bit unbelievable. The point that he was raising seems to have been totally lost in his own disingenuous approach. Rates freeze wouldn't have been possible. 1.2 million going directly back into our communities, I think, is something we should be celebrating. And I'll just leave it there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Councillor Feely.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And likewise, I'm glad to see this money going to be invested in the rural towns right now. District. Glad to see Connolly mention in Erne West, my own area here. Well, not my area, but Erne West. So if nobody's proposed the recommendation, I just propose it.
Thank you, Anthony. Next, we're over to Councillor McAleer.
Thank you, Chair. Now, just picking up on one comment from Councillor McAffrey there, I think the idea or the notion that he expressed that rates freeze isn't possible or wasn't possible, that's not the case, and I think he knows that's not the case. It was one of the potential outcomes that we were able to discuss. That the fact that he and his party and others voted against it is besides the matter. But I had liaised with the director prior to this item being discussed, just to see whether I needed to declare an interest or not as a member of Greencastle St Patrick's GAA Club. Just the road that it's going down and the fact that we're kind of going over old ground as opposed to maybe progressing this matter. I'm just going to declare an interest and I'm not going to participate in the debate or discussion around it. Thank you, Chair.
Speaker in the chamber.
Okay, we'll go over to the chamber.
Gormagat, Carly. Yeah, just to come in and second the recommendations, and thank you. And I agree. 1.2 million pounds going into local communities and all of the good projects. I mean, there are 3 listed there that are ready to go, but projects that could come out of this, and the kind of the objectives that we're looking to hit, you know, that people are healthy and well. There's no real limit to that. I think it's hugely positive, and just using the example of sports clubs, you know, mental health, just for a start, just, you know, the amazing benefits of playing sports. And of course, a lot of these buildings and facilities are used for a whole range of activities, and I just think it's fantastic. That's 2 reports we've had there in a row, and that is £2.5 million going out of this council into local communities, into small towns and villages across our district. Something really to be celebrated. I know we are going through a cost of living crisis. We kept the rates down as low as possible. And you know, we've done that really well. I think there's been a lot of hysteria whipped up by certain elements of this council, when we know that the overall increase is actually 1.2%. And I note, actually, with some disgust, actually, that these are the same people who are calling for pay raises for our council workers, and I'm wondering where they think that those are going to come from. So let's stop being disingenuous about things and stop trying to score cheap points and just get on and celebrate good work when it's happening. This is great. This is great news. 2.5 million going out to small towns and villages across our district. Gormagat, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Chair,
Yes.
Councillor Clark.
Okay,
Can
Sean.
I,
You can.
Can I come in here?
You can.
Okay. First of all, I have to declare an interest, because people locally will know the connection I have. But I think we had some very schoolboy politics played around the rich, so I welcome this. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay, you've heard the recommendation proposed and seconded. Is everybody in agreement? Okay, we'll move on. And are you dissenting, Councillor O'Coffey?
I am, Chair.
Okay, that's fine. We'll move on to Sean. I'm going to have to silence you. Sorry. We'll move on to item 5.5, which is paper E, which is tourism development initiatives.
Chair,
Back
just
to Kim.
before we go into that, if I could clarify that the total investment over the last two reports is approaching 3.5 million. The 1.37 million was for one strand of the small settlements. So just to clarify that wider investment, and also to clarify that the assessment of the strategic projects aligns to our strategic outcomes in our community plan and our corporate plan. There is a value for money assessment, and there will be an evaluation at the end of the projects. Thank you.
Oh, okay,
So
thank you for that, Kim.
moving on to report item 5.5 on tourism development. So the purpose of this report is to seek members' approval to progress various tourism development initiatives in terms of supporting our community and corporate plan. In relation to Fermanagh Lakeland Tourism's marketing programme, the first part of the report refers to the year just past and reports on programme activity overview for 21 to 22 against the service level agreements we have in place for Fermanagh Lakelands and Oma and the Sperrins. And on page 2, members can see the performance measures included in the SLA and performance aligned to those performance measures. The second part of the report relates to the proposed service level agreement for 2022 to 23, and just in terms of ensuring continuity of tourism marketing services while we progress the finalisation of our visitor experience development plan. It is proposed that we extend those service level agreements with Fermanagh Lakeland Tourism for the year ahead. We have received a marketing plan at Appendix 1, and it provides a breakdown of proposed costs aligned to marketing activity. Fermanagh Lakeland Tourism has, in terms of that marketing plan, identified a budgetary shortfall of £30,000 and has requested that this shortfall is met by Council through an uplift in financial assistance from 95,000 to 125,000, and that's for marketing and promotion of Fermanagh Lakelands. Fermanagh Lakeland Tourism has indicated that it plans to raise additional revenue from the private sector, but has noted that this may be challenging due to the current economic pressures. At this point, there has been no confirmation of any additional funding from Tourism NI regarding campaigns in the current year. Just to note that the Council has, as members will be aware, agreed its budgetary position for this financial year, and also that due to increasing fiscal pressures, the Council will also face budgetary challenges. So in terms of the request to meet the shortfall, the tourism development budget in place has not set aside additional funding to support that request, but it has provision allowed so that provision of 15,000 could be made available, which had been identified for other seasonal campaigns. And it's suggested that FLT then engages with other partners, including Tourism NI, to seek the remaining shortfall. The request is also for 22,600 to support the marketing and promotion of the Sperrins part of the district, and appropriate provision has been made within our budgets for that. Council officers are also engaging with FLT around performance measures because there is a gap in NISRA data, and that NISRA didn't continue to gather some of the key tourism stats during the COVID period, so that has left us with a data gap. In relation to Sperrins Partnership Board, there's an update there in terms of the ongoing work of the board across the 4 councils. And at 2.2.2, I've outlined some matters agreed by the board, which include participation in a Green Space Dark Skies initiative with Gorchin Lakes to be the preferred location, a Sperrins-wide familiarisation trip for board members, a management structure for the Sperrins AONB is being pursued with a feasibility study being progressed on each management model. We are using the adapted Discover Tyrone and the Sperrins logo for the purposes of the Sperrins partnership, and we're also progressing a single procurement exercise led by Fermanagh and Omagh District Council to plan and deliver a walking weekend in each of the 4 council areas in this current financial year. The Sperrins Sculpture Trail project is ongoing. It's on site, well advanced, and is scheduled for completion by the 30th of June. And alongside that, there is a communications and marketing group established with officer representation, and we're looking at on-site and online interpretation as part of a marketing plan. There will be a public engagement event on 26th of May in Gorchin Glen Forest Park, at which participants will also have the opportunity to learn more about the project, and we will extend that invitation to the local councillors in relation to that event as well. And also have outlined some information about a licence agreement with Camp Base Adventures, who are currently located at Gorchin Glen Forest Park to operate a bike hire and uplift service. They've been given planning permission for a temporary unit for sale, hire and maintenance of bicycles, and to allow that to proceed we need to adapt the lease agreement with Forest NI and enter into an associated legal agreement with Camp Base Adventures. So it's recommended that the council approves a total contribution of 110,000 for the 22 to 23 financial year, an uplift of 15,000 linked to a service level agreement with Fermanagh Lakeland Tourism for marketing and promotion of Fermanagh Lakelands, approves a total contribution of 22,600 for the current financial year in relation to a service level agreement with FLT for marketing and promotion of the Sperrins, notes the update on the Sperrins Partnership Project, notes the update on the Sperrins Sculpture Trail Project, and approves entry into an appropriate legal agreement with Camp Base Adventures Limited for a cycling facility at Gorchin Glen Forest Park.
Okay, thank you for all that, Kim. First up, we're going to the chamber to Councillor Diana Armstrong.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Kim, for bringing this report to Council. Just a question on the budgetary funding, and I see, yes, you've noted that the Council also is feeling the increasing fiscal pressures. The sum, the funding of 15,000 that's being made available from other seasonal campaigns, Kim, could I ask, would that be to the detriment of a campaign? Of what seasonal campaigns are they, and how would that impact? Thank you.
It's really just allocated in the budget, in that we have traditionally had requests for additional seasonal campaigns around Fermanagh Lakelands and have in the past supported those. So we carried that budget allocation forward. So it wouldn't be to the detriment of any other planned campaigns.
Okay. And on another matter, if I may, Chair, the baseline information, the NISRA statistics, when do we expect the next updated NISRA statistics that we can base our data science on?
It will be at least 2 years, but I also understand that NISRA are reviewing the methodology. So it may be that those stats will change and that there may not be then the opportunity to have that consistent and ongoing measurement. So that's up for discussion at the moment.
Okay, thanks, Kim. And Chair, with that, I'm happy to propose the recommendations and to note points 3, 4 and 3 and 4 in the recommendations. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we have Councillor Thornton.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I have a bit of concern here. Diana's expressed a bit of concern. We're providing 95,000 on budget, which we have budgeted for, and an additional 22,600. First of all, I want to ask if in 2.3.3, Derry City and Strabane are putting together a comms and marketing group. Does that, the 22,600, is that included within any marketing budget that comes out of that? That's the first question. The second question is, we all are cutting our cloth, and obviously FLT I find it difficult with some of their groups that fund them. But really, have we 15,000 sitting there that in our own budgets that can be just transferred across? It surprises me to hear that, especially with a new development, tourism development innovation officer who surely needs some funding to start her work on the council, just the same as Derry City and Strabane are doing with regard to council. So I'm interested in a few answers to those questions, because really this is not the first time that they've come back for more money, and we all have the budget, and but I'd be interested in the questions to those answers to those questions before agreeing to the extra 15,000. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. So firstly, the marketing plan with Derry City and Strabane is in relation specifically to the Sperrins sculptures, and that will be progressed through the allocation which we make to the Sperrins partnership. So there is no request for additional funding at this point in time to take forward that marketing plan. That would be drawn from those resources. In terms of the 15K, that was in our tourism development budget, so it wasn't allocated specifically to FLT. It was allocated for opportunities which may arise during the year, and I suppose we can only use it once. So if we allocate it now to FLT, then we'll be very limited in terms of opportunities to fund any other tourism development opportunities through the remainder of the year. In terms of tourism innovation, we're focused very much on the conclusion of the visitor experience development plan and on identifying the actions which are needed then to take that plan forward, and that's something that I would expect to be engaging directly with members on before the end of June in relation to those proposals.
Chair, if I can come back in and those questions are now answered, I just hope there's not going to be a future conflict between the marketing group from Derry City and Strabane on behalf of our council, as well as FLT covering the same area. But with those in mind, I think I can support Councillor Armstrong's proposals. Thank you.
You want to second them then? Thank you, Councillor Thornton. Next up, we have Councillor Earl Thompson.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think I was on there before that, but there you are. No, I'm happy. Can I thank Director Kim McLaughlin for a very comprehensive report there, and I want to lend my support to all parts of the recommendations as listed. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, no problem. Anne-Marie Donnelly.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I'm coming at this from a different view altogether. From looking at the baseline information that's being provided and the value of tourism in the district across the Sperrins and Fermanagh Lakelands, I think that additional 15,000 is a very small price to pay. When you look at the visitor spend in the district for both areas, it's 79.4 million for one in 1 year and 79 million. Surely this request for an additional 15,000 of what is in the recommendations, it's a very small investment, and it's a fantastic boost, I would think, for tourism in the Sperrins and Fermanagh. I think that it's something that we really should consider, and if it's possible for that 15,000 to be found, I would propose that the council seek to find that additional 15,000, because when you look at the benefit and the visitor spend, it's like a win-win. I can't see why we wouldn't do it if it's possible at all. So I would propose we would increase the recommendation there for that additional 15,000.
Okay.
Chair, if I could maybe just clarify just before we go forward, that the request for the budget shortfall of 30,000 is only for Fermanagh Lakelands promotion and marketing. There's no request to uplift the Sperrins, Omans Sperrins marketing, which remains at 22,600. Just a point of clarity.
Can I come back there, Victor, on that?
Okay, yeah.
I would say even so, when you look at the visitor spend, the potential for increasing tourism and tourism spend in the district, I still think 15,000 is very good value. I know it's on top of the other 15,000 that has been recommended here tonight, but I think that that's That's value for money as far as I can see. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Councillor Matthew Bell.
Thank you, Chair. I suppose there's not really much more to say, but I just want to really welcome all the developments which are ongoing to really develop tourism within the Sperrins. I've always felt the Sperrin Mountains are really a hidden gem for tourism in Northern Ireland, especially compared to maybe the more popular destinations on the north coast and Belfast. It's great to see that our council is really hammering home that the Sperrins can be an excellent tourist destination. Looking through the marketing aspect of the report, it's also great to see that all the social media analytics are going up. So clearly all the work we're doing and all the people coming back are enjoying themselves. And it's also great to see that we're attracting visitors from far away as the southern coast of Ireland. So just to welcome all the developments. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. And finally, we have Councillor McElduff.
Okay, Chair. Just to ask questions, maybe, because the questions are being asked of me by members of the community and by tourism partners. Okay, rightly or wrongly, there's a perception that Omagh and the Sperrins doesn't get adequate marketing attention. And it's been said to me, and I was thinking about it today, how to be diplomatic in saying this. Well, the simple truth is that there's a contract between us and the people. If they raise issues with us, we bring them up in meetings like this. So even if it's a little bit unpalatable, the question needs to be asked, is Omagh the heart of Tyrone, the heart of music, and the Sperrins getting its fair share when it comes to the marketing budget and the attention and the focus of FLT? That's the question that's been asked of me, Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Do you want to answer that first, Kim, or will I bring in Councillor Feely?
Well, if I could just comment that I suppose the FLT marketing budget for Omagh and the Sperrins is not the entirety of our investment in the Sperrins. We do invest also in the Sperrins Partnership Project, and we have mentioned that there is marketing attention going on there as well. I suppose what I would say is that this is a continuation of our current arrangements, but I suppose we are very much looking towards the future and how we make the most of tourism for this district. And I would point to the work that's going on in the Visitor Experience Development Plan, which we will be bringing to members very shortly, and that will provide a pathway to our new approach to ensuring that the district really derives the maximum benefit across our industry, across our communities, and for visitors in terms of tourism investment. So if we could look at this as an extension of the status quo, but also looking very much in the period towards looking to the future.
Okay. Councillor Feely?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. No, I'm just I don't know if anybody second Councillor Donnelly's proposal. I'd just like to second it, but any investment into tourism in any part of the area would be good. So we'll just second Councillor Donnelly's proposal.
Okay. Kim, keep me right here with two proposals, with Councillor Armstrong's proposal and seconded by Councillor Thornton, and we have Councillor Anne-Marie Donnelly's proposal that we give the 15,000 to Fermanagh Lakeland for Fermanagh Lakeland Tourism.
Yes, the original proposal is for the recommendations as outlined, with the uplift of 15,000, and that's Councillor Armstrong, seconded by Councillor Thornton, and then the second proposal by Councillor Anne-Marie Donnelly and seconded by Councillor Feely is that we would further increase that uplift to the full 30,000 to meet the funding shortfall identified by FLT.
Okay. Yes, I've heard both of these proposals. They're not conflicting. Is everybody happy enough with those? Councillor Donnelly, do you want to come back in again there?
Yes, Chair. I was just going to say that if Howard and Diana, would they consider just amending the recommendation at point 1 to the 30,000 as opposed to having two proposals?
Councillor Armstrong?
Chair, I would suggest, can we take this report back? Can FLT look at how they could, or just re-examine their budgets and keep that we can offer 15,000 and see is there a way within which they can work with 15,000? So I'm happy for my original proposal to stand, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, well, look at they're not really conflicting. We'll take the both proposals as they are, and we can go back to FLT. Taking both proposals on the table, is everybody happy with those two proposals?
Chair, I think they are conflicting. You know, if we agree, that one is to agree the 15K and the other then is to meet the full funding shortfall. So there is a difference between the proposals in terms of, and just to note in terms of our budget, we do not have currently budget available for the full 30K in terms of our estimates.
Okay, well, with that, we will obviously end up, we're going to go to a vote again. So we'll take Councillor Armstrong's proposal first.
Sorry, Chair, before we go to the vote, Councillor McGuire would like to come in the chamber. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Tommy.
Carly, I think we need some further clarification before we go to the vote. I know in my mind, £15,000 to be found somewhere in our budgets, I would consider it a small enough amount, considering the history of the last couple of years, the pandemic, etc. And obviously, from what I'm hearing, a lot of families are focusing on staycation, and potentially Fermanagh and Omagh district could be hopefully busier than they have in previous years with staycation. So I'm inclined to agree with Councillor Donnelly that a further £15,000 doesn't seem that difficult to find. So again, I know the restriction with budgets from the officers, etc. But I wonder, is there, as Councillor Armstrong did indicate there may be some potential of going back to FLT on the issue of their budget. And at that point, would it be up to propose that we send this particular item back until next month, or would that cause any major concerns with funding to seek out further avenues for funding for FLT?
If members were minded to agree the recommendations as outlined at this point, and then we could bring a report back in terms of FLT's consideration of the gap remaining in their funding shortfall, and if they have other opportunities to fill that, and we can bring an update back to the next meeting.
Okay.
And just sorry, Chair, just to clarify then on that point, if you'd allow me, then that means then that if FLT were found to be unable to raise that capital, we would have an opportunity then to maybe allocate for the fund if necessary. Yeah, I'd be happy enough with that, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Anne-Marie Donnelly, and are you happy enough to let us go back to FLT and see and bring it back to RNC next month?
Yes, Chair, as long as it's a case of FLT seeking to find, if they can find the remaining shortfall, and with the Kim and the other directors maybe perhaps looking to see is there any capacity within other budgets perhaps to find the 15 if it's necessary to do so, because I really do think that there's an opportunity for tourism in the district there for that. So I'm happy to revert it back for another month.
Okay, are you happy enough, Councillor Feely?
Councillor Armstrong would like to come back in. Sorry, Chair.
Yeah, I'm happy. Yeah.
Okay, I'll just bring Councillor O'Coffey in first.
Yeah, Chair, just if I could ask through yourself, the director, if we were to find this 15,000, can I ask where this is going to come from and the budget? Thank you, Chair.
It's not currently identified in the budget, so that's something we need to give consideration to. And again, it may be something that could be identified through positive variances as we go through the year.
Okay, so are we happy that we agree the recommendations proposed and seconded?
Councillor Armstrong, sorry, Chair.
Councillor Armstrong, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I just wanted to thank Councillor Maguire. I think if we can put our heads together, if FLT can examine their budgets, if there's a way through this, I think it's a good proposal to bring it back to next month. And thank you, Kim, for that. Thank you.
Okay, is everybody happy with that proposal and recommendations? Okay, we will move on to the next. And I hit the wrong button. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is 5.6, which is the business case report.
Thank you, Chair. So this report provides an update on 4 business cases. Firstly, Drumee Waste Transfer Station. So this is for a 4-bay waste storage shed in terms of residual waste treatment and is really about our capacity once the landfill site at Drumee reaches its full capacity in mid-2024. The project will provide the necessary infrastructure to ensure Drumee can robustly store residual waste and also includes provision for solar panels. The total cost is £2,329,520 and is recommended for approval. The next part relates to our digital strategic framework, which has already been approved through the Policy and Resources Committee, and the business case then has been developed in terms of proceeding with implementation at a total cost of £1.85 million and is recommended for approval. Then we have 2 updates in relation to greenways. Firstly, the greenway from Enniskillen to Belcoo, which is part of the Sligo to Enniskillen greenway route, and delivery of that project is being led by Leitrim County Council as part of a cross-border collaboration of councils. A procurement process has been completed to appoint a design team, and we have confirmation of funding from the Department of Transport in Ireland, with some funding allocated for the EA on the Enniskillen to Belcoo route. And that EA has confirmed that the project is economically viable, and that will inform the overall EA for the project from Sligo to Enniskillen. The total cost of the project is £6.36 million, and it's recommended the council should continue to work closely with Leitrim County Council and other partners to progress the design stage of that Sligo to Enniskillen greenway route. The 4th part then relates to the greenway from Omagh to Carrickmore. We did previously in 2017 progress a feasibility study in this route to inform the development of an initial economic appraisal. The work progressed then identifies a range of issues and based on the information available establishes that the greenway is not economically viable based on a range of issues, including the insufficient research available to date on the route and some of the hidden issues around road crossings and bridges as part of that route, and also the length of the greenway, which crosses to a large extent agricultural ground. The indicative budget is suggested at £6 million to £14 million, and it's recommended that the council notes that the EA has established that the project is not economically viable at this time. It's also recommended that we explore alternative opportunities for potential greenway routes aligned to the Omagh and the Sperrins tourism destination, connecting some of the key products and experiences. And those 2 proposals would be a route from Omagh to the Ulster American Folk Park as part of a longer greenway route with Derry City and Strabane Council from Omagh to Strabane. And also we look at a greenway route from Omagh to Gorchin Glens Forest Park. The recommendations are that the council approves the business cases in respect of Drumee Waste Transfer Station and the strategic digital framework, approves the proposed approach in relation to the Enniskillen to Belcoo Greenway, and also notes the update in respect of the Omagh to Carrickmore Greenway project and agrees to explore alternative greenway provision aligned to the Omagh and the Sperrins tourism destination.
Okay, thank you, Kim. First up was Councillor O'Coffey.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I am very happy to see the greenway going ahead, obviously, between Belcoo and Enniskillen. I think it'll make a a good contribution not only to the tourism in this area, but also to the environment. So I think it is a positive development. I hope to see others going up. I think it's something we would want to see right across our communities. We have a fantastic, landmass down here, and I think we need to make the most of it. And this sort of investment's actually very important. The issue I wanted to really speak around is, however, the incinerator shed. I note it has to be said that there's the Dramee waste transfer station, i.e. a 4-bay shed to store waste before it is incinerated. I fail to see that as anything other than a chronic failure of ambition. We've heard so much about zero waste strategies. We've heard every day about 50-degree centigrade temperatures now in Pakistan. And we also know the dioxins associated with incineration. If this is to be the future, to the point that we are now required to build a £2.3 million shed to accommodate the waste that's going to be incinerated, then I think it's a chronic failure, not really just simply on behalf of our council, but of Northern Ireland Executive. We really need to see, could that money not be better used to bring about a reuse, recycle, and reduce strategy? Why is it that we're putting £2.3 million into I can only assume it's a colossal shed, 2.3 million, to accommodate waste? Is there not, why are we relying on incineration to deal with waste which we need to minimize, which could be legislated out of existence in many cases? It's staggering, and I think we need to look at alternatives. So I'd like to propose that we would not proceed with that expenditure, that we would instead look at alternatives to bring forward a zero waste strategy to minimize the amount of waste going to both landfill and to incineration. And I think we need to call it incineration and stop greenwashing around the idea of solar panels on top of a facility that's going to pump out tons and tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere unnecessarily, if we can pursue an alternative. So I'd like to propose that we look at options for a genuine zero waste strategy as a council. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor McAleer.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, you're reading this report on 2.2, the idea that we would be spending in excess of 2.3 million facilitating a third party or private incineration. I kind of beg yours belief that would actually even be something that we would be considering as a local authority. I think I would have to come in strongly to oppose the construction of new incinerators. That whilst they may alleviate the pressure to reduce waste, but they also quite rightly or quite widely known to cause air pollution, and they are bad for the climate. There has been criticism for lack of engagement surrounding or with local communities over waste incineration previously, and in the very recent past we have the example of the ARC 21 up in Hightown, Mollusk, that project, for example. So what we need to do is to rapidly seek further reductions in the proportion of recyclable materials that are actually being sent to landfill or incineration, and Councillor O'Coffey calls it quite rightly incineration. We need to develop an indicative cap that is going to decline over time for the amount of waste that's being burned as we aspire to transition towards a fully circular economy. I think people are aware that burning plastic releases more carbon than coal, and the only way to cut emissions from incineration for good is to stop burning waste. I've spoken a number of times about the dispatches program. I think it was last March, it was shown about the dirty truth about your rubbish and the problems surrounding incineration, how dirty it really is. That's something we need to be very aware of. We need to value resources properly rather than taking from nature, using them once and then burning them or burying the waste. That's not the way to go. So I'm happy to second Councillor O'Coffey in relation to that. I would like to make a further proposal just in relation to the greenways. It's disappointing to hear that the Cregan or the Carrickmore Greenway has been deemed not economically viable, but just given the parameters that are noted within the report in terms of promoting greenways around the Sperrins. I would suggest that we look at some of the archaeological sites in or around the Craigan Centre, the likes of Craigan Devesky, Craigan Conroe. You have the neighbouring site of the Behmore Stone Circles over in Mid-Ulster District, and I think that's something that we could work collaboratively with Mid-Ulster District Council in pursuing. So I'd just like to make that as a proposal, Chair, that alongside the projects that are listed there, that would be another option that we would look at. You know, it's something again that's on our doorstep that we're very lucky to have. And as speakers in the previous section of the meeting we're talking about, the Sperrins is an area that we should be promoting a bit more, and this would be one way to do that, just to use those natural resources that are on our door. So I just make that as a secondary proposal. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Feely.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd just like to come in on the other greenway at 2.4.1 there from Inniskill and Belcoo. I think it's great to see progress being made on this. It'll be great for the area for tourism stuff to get that bit done from Inniskill to Belcoo. I know it's going to be a large one from Inniskill to Sligo, and there is a bit already up at Glenfarne that I was up at a couple of years ago. So I just think it's great, and I like to see that we continue to work with Leitrim County Council and other partners to get as far advanced as we can as quick as possible. I think it's great for the local area. Thank you, Victor.
Okay, no problem. Josephine.
Thank you, Chair. Well, yes, I would like to second Councillor McAleer's proposal regarding a greenway around the various significant archaeological sites that we have in the Craigan area. And I do agree that it's something that we should seek clarification from Mid-Ulster Council as to whether or not they would be interested in a collaborative project there. I certainly think it would boost our tourism project, and I think as a council we're all committed to that objective. So happy to second Councillor McAleer's proposal, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Speaker in the chamber, Chair.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, Gurmagad Cairley, just on item there 2.2, there is a difficulty there. I think you know, we have a commitment to work towards zero waste and the circular economy, and that's in our community plan, I believe, and across our sustainable climate change and sustainable development plan. The problem is that we're not moving quickly enough, and I don't think that's a bad reflection just on the council, but I think in general, you know, so there's a difficulty. It's a transition that's taken place. I suppose this is in front of us now, but I would just request that that is brought back to us. I think that there needs to be more exploration done around our options, and maybe a report to come back on that. So I wouldn't be supportive, Chair, of the recommendation on the business case for the Drumee waste transfer station. Gurmagad.
Okay. Kim, do you want to highlight where we are at this stage then? We have two proposals on the table. We have a proposal from Councillor O'Coffey, and we also have a proposal from Councillor McAleer.
Yes, we have a proposal from Councillor Coffey, seconded by Councillor McAleer, not to proceed with 2.2 in terms of the business case for Drumee. We also have a proposal by Councillor McAleer, seconded by Councillor Dayton, to explore with Mid-Ulster District Council the greenway, the provision of a greenway linking Oma with Craigan and the range of archaeological sites. We have a proposal from Councillor Curry, which hasn't been seconded yet, to take the recommendations with the exception of item 2.2, and that is brought back for further consideration in terms of our wider policy approach.
Okay, Councillor Donnelly, you're second Councillor Curry's proposal, are you?
Yes, Chair, happy to get more information to make a more informed decision. Thank you.
Okay.
Another speaker in the chamber, Chair.
Okay, go ahead.
Margaret Caherly, well, I was coming into Councillor to second Councillor Curry's proposal, obviously not having sight of Councillor Donny's hand up. But again, I'm aware that the proposal as it stands does go in line with our corporate plan, community plan, and our climate change and sustainability, sustainable development action plan. And whereas, as outlined by other councillors, the idea that we can wish away this waste, I believe, like all the other transitions that have to take place till we get to that place, I do believe that we may be faced with the reality that we do need to build such a facility. But with the best will in the world, we are not going to wish ourselves into a zero waste situation. Since I came back to this town hall, we have been endeavouring to educate our school children and our public about recycling and reusing and all the rest of it. And that doesn't deny the fact that we still have residual waste that we will have to manage. It's our role to manage that situation, not to just throw out some sound bites there and ignore the reality that we have as a district council a requirement to manage this situation until we ultimately get to the targets we are setting ourselves. And of course, we're the first council, I believe, to come in with our climate change and sustainable policies there. So I think that we are leading the way, but we still have to be realistic. There is management required in this case, Gormagat.
Okay. There's no other speakers indicating, so we'll now take the proposals. We'll take Councillor McAleer's proposal first, on where we liaise with Mid-Ulster on investigating the greenway in that area. Is everybody agreed with that proposal? Okay, no dissent, so that's passed. We'll go to Councillor McAleer's second proposal. Can you just tell us that proposal again, Councillor McAleer, please?
Surely, Chair. Yeah. Very briefly, it's just there's a host of archaeological sites in and around the Cregan area, and Cregan, obviously, as part of the local tourist industry, has maps and information on all those, but it would kind of be nearly a central spot. So you're talking about the likes of Cregan Conroe, Cregan Devesky, you have the Ahascrubba Stone, you have the Bethmore Stone Circles over in Mid-Ulster. There's a plethora of sites rich in archaeological history, so it's really looking at a way that we can tie in a greenway to promote and link together those various sites, because I think it's an untapped resource, or a resource that could really be promoted and connected and tied in a wee bit better. Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
Councillor Maguire in the chamber, Chair.
Councillor Maguire.
Gormagat Caherly, just on that particular issue, I think I'm right that we did make a proposal maybe months ago to Director Boyle, I believe, in relation to mapping and surveying our historic and prehistoric sites across the whole district. I just wonder, on the back of that, would the Director have an update on that? And would that then ultimately tie in with the proposal of Councillor McAleer that once we would have that survey done, that we could then develop the package and the historical and tourist benefits of those sites? Just maybe Director Boyle has some recollection for me.
John, do you want to come in there?
Yeah, Chair. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Chair, that work is ongoing at the moment. So it is, but that is just in relation to mapping it and to providing some historical facts at these sites. It wouldn't be in relation to the development of a greenway that would link them. So in my mind, this is a separate proposal, but certainly it can be considered after we bring a report through to committee in relation to the mapping and the information boards that would be required at such sites.
Okay, thank you for that. Well, so you've heard then Councillor McAleer's proposal, and that was seconded by Councillor. It was seconded anyway.
Councillor Dayton, Chair.
Dayton, yeah. Is everybody happy with that proposal? Okay, that's passed, and then we'll go back to the proposal on the recommendations, but that we go back on the item of the incinerator, bring that back again at our next meeting. Am I right in what I'm saying, Kim? Yes.
Yes, Chair, we had two separate proposals, but I think maybe there's an opportunity to bring them together. So firstly from Councillor O'Coffey, seconded by Councillor McAleer, not to proceed with 2.2, and then by Councillor Curry, seconded by Councillor Anne-Marie Donnelly, to propose the recommendations with the exception of 2.2 and bring a report back to committee on that wider policy approach. And that report would come through the Environmental Services Committee, Chair.
Okay, I'm getting the hands up from Councillor O'Coffey. You're happy enough with that, Donald, or do you want to speak?
No, it was just one clarification because I'd raised in my initial proposal that I would like to have a report on the alternatives around a zero waste strategy. Thank you, Chair.
I think we could incorporate that as part of the discussion around the policy approach.
Okay. You happy, Donald?
Yes, I'm happy. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Well, then you've heard that proposal. Is everybody happy with that proposal? Okay. That's great. We'll move on to item 5.7, and that is the report of the Director of Regeneration and Planning, paper G.
Thank you, Chair. So this report is around Enniskillen bid and the footfall monitoring services which are in Enniskillen Town Centre, and we use those footfall monitoring measures for a range of uses, including the viability of the town centre, our purple flag, or the evaluation of our public realm scheme. So Enniskillen bid has indicated that it has requested support to continue its contract with Springboard.
Please hold.
Sorry, apologies. To continue its contract with Springboard, who are the provider, and they're seeking a 50% contribution to the annual costs over a 5-year contract from the council, which would be an annual contribution of £3,000 to Enniskillen bid towards the cost of footfall monitoring in Enniskillen Town Centre for a 5-year period.
Councillor Curry in the chamber.
I'll bring in Councillor O'Reilly first. Go ahead, Thomas.
Cheers, Victor. Yes, I'm happy to propose that, Chair. And can I, in making that proposal, just ask that maybe at a future meeting we could bring a report on what all facilities we do have to gather baseline statistics through the counting mechanisms, because I know we had some capacity to do that, and when we look at funding applications and so much, they rely so heavily on being able to provide current accurate data, and I'm just looking to see where exactly we are as a council with being able to collect that data, and whether we have all static or whether we have some mobile provision as well. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Curry.
Gormagada Kerley, just to second the recommendations. I think it's good to support this, and just noting as well the data that would be shared with other council services as well, which might just help us, in our place shaping. When we're thinking about that, we're dealing with a change in picture, no doubt about it, in town centres. So that's a challenge, I think, for us in the future. So just happy to second that. I'm not sure if that was a proposal from Corey O'Reilly, but I'll second that too if it was. Gormagad.
Okay, Donald.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question through yourself to the director there. I note that this is again an expenditure that's not in the rates, so I'm just wondering, where does this come out of? Thank you, Chair.
We do have some budget available for urban regeneration, and this would be part of we could fund it through the urban regeneration allocation.
Okay. So we've had the recommendations proposed and seconded. Is everybody happy? Okay, was there a second proposal in there as well?
Yes, Chair, just that I was making that baseline information gathering capacity a proposal, Chair.
Okay. And was that was seconded?
Yes,
Yeah.
that was seconded by Councillor Curry also.
Okay, is everybody agreed with that proposal? Okay, great. Councillor Blake had his hand up there, but
It was, sorry, Chair, it was just to say that, yeah, it would be fully supporting it as well, and that I think it was seconded by Councillor Curry. I think seconded both proposals there.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's great. We will now move on to item 6 on the agenda, which is the Community and Wellbeing Directorate reports. And the first one up is 6.1, which is the Good Relations Action Plan, paper H, and it's over to John.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Chair, this is the annual Good Relations Strategy for this year, for the incoming year, the Action Plan 22-23. Just to inform the action plan for the next 3 years, an audit has been completed as part of the Good Relations Strategy and is required by funding from the Executive Office. And it has informed that Good Relations Action Plan, which is included in Appendix 1 for consideration. The action plan covers the outcomes, the indicators, and the measures and the actions for projects supported through the budgets and resources on the Together Building a United Community themes, and that's totally in line with our outcome-based accountability processes that we have within the council. You will see from Appendix 1, Chair, that there are a wide range of actions, 15 programmes in total, with a number of actions listed below those programmes, based from schools, youth, victims and survivors, grants, faith-based dialogue, and cultural matters, indeed. And it is a wide-ranging programme which is funded from the Executive Office 75% and 25%, which comes from the council. That we already have a letter of offer from the Executive Office for 218,000 in relation for the action plan itself, which is 75% of the total cost of 290,000. So, Chair, it is recommended that the council approves the Fermanagh District Council Good Relations Action Plan for 22-23, which is included in Appendix 1. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Deehan.
Thank you, Chair, and I would like to thank John for his report. I'm happy to propose the recommendation. I really appreciate the commitment which the Executive Office have shown towards building good community relations. And I also want to thank and show appreciation to our community relations officers. I think they do excellent work. And Chair, as John has stated, there are 15 excellent programs of work which are outlined in this action plan. And in assessing this work, we are going to use outcome-based accountability, which we should do and which we have been using in many of our projects in this council. And that is an approach that I support wholeheartedly. I particularly welcome those programs which are targeted at our young people. I think that it's so important in our district council area that we should have very, very good community relations. And indeed, we do pride ourselves on good community relations within our council area. But we have more work to do. And I think that those 15 programs will go a long way in helping us achieve our objectives. So I want to propose a recommendation for the Good Relations Action Plan. And finally, I want to thank Peter Osborne for the work that he has been doing with us. And I find it all very interesting and very positive. And I want to thank him for that, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor O'Coffey.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I share with Councillor Deehan I think it's very important that we get the expenditure that we are afforded on good relations right. I'm not totally convinced that we do, if I'm honest. But the question I really wanted to raise was maybe suggested by page 3, where there's a table that's not filled out on the Appendix 1, which is basically total costs, total program costs, total staff costs. And staff costs, total costs are not included in that page. But if you look on the summary page in our report or summary for the councillors, the total cost is 290,000. The program cost of that is 130,000. The issue for me really is that the program costs are only 45% of the total cost. That means 55% of this is the delivery costs. And I'm not sure any sort of program I've ever heard of, usually the ratio at very most would be 1/3 for delivery costs. We need to prioritize these funds going to actually have the impact that we desire. And I'm just wondering whether maybe I'm something wrong in my interpretation of it, but if it is true that 55% of these costs are not actually going to the program itself, I would like to see if there was any possibility of reviewing that and ensuring a higher percentage go to actually benefit the outcome of good relations. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Councillor McAleer.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Councillor Coffey is quite right. I'll not reiterate what he's just said, but I think we do need to look at the proportion of the expenditure that we are incurring, given the figures that are stated there. I have to object to, I suppose, one particular part of this, and it's code FA08 or FA08, the PCSP partnership program. And I notice on page 18 of the attached document, the appendix, that there's names and postcodes for the main areas of the program impact, one of those being Greencastle. The outcome listed is to reduce the prevalence of hate crime and intimidation. Now, I'm not aware of much hate crime in Greencastle, but I am aware of intimidation. But unfortunately, the perpetrators of that intimidation seem to be escaping scot-free, whereas the local population who are being intimidated there are the ones that are ending up being intimidated and then being harassed by the police. It gives as well on page 18, the program is to continue the work with the PCSP, identify a priority partnership project built on evolving trust with community activists, which is completely absent in our area, and to continue work on good relations, safety issues, and partnership with the PCSP. I think the idea that this is included in a report is completely, it's so far away from the reality, so far removed from the reality of what's actually happening in my own DA. It's to be laughable if it wasn't such a serious matter. And I think the fact that we as a council are providing funding, be it part funding or whatever, to an organisation that is not even living up to its own name, I think it's something that we really need to seriously address. But I've stated my position on this numerous times, and I'm just reiterating it again tonight. I can't support something which continues funding to this completely ineffective body, given the reality of what's happening in my own area. So just to record my dissent in relation to that, Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we've had the recommendations proposed by Councillor Deehan. They haven't been seconded yet.
Chair, if I could possibly please come in
okay.
here just in relation to the query there from Councillor O'Coffey in relation to the delivery costs, as opposed to the nature of the actual work itself. This wouldn't be a normal program expenditure that you would for a training program or whatever like that. The nature of the work is very labour intensive in good relations. and the type of work that they do in relation to getting into communities and dealing with communities and dealing with the very specific issues in communities is very labor intensive, and I think that is reflected actually in the split of the costs between the delivery and actually the actual program cost itself of what goes to the program. So, and that would actually be very, very normal in all good relations action plans across Northern Ireland for that split. In fact, we would be one of the better ones in relation to the amount of money that is going towards programs.
Okay, Councillor Rennie.
I am happy to second the proposal, Chair.
Okay, thank you. You've heard the recommendations proposed and seconded. Councillor McAleer is dissenting from them. Is everybody else happy with that? Councillor O'Coffey is dissenting as well. Okay, that's passed. We will move on. The next item on the agenda is 6.2 is the Landfill Community Fund Projects paper A, or paper A.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, it's the purpose of the report to seek permission for 3 projects to apply to the Landfill Community Fund. One is for Fort Hill Park Bandstand restoration. It is estimated that the total cost of the bandstand restoration will cost somewhere in the region of £2,000 or 200,000 in professional fees. Members will be aware that quite significant work has taken place in Fort Hill, and the one remaining aspect of the work is actually the bandstand, which is again a protected structure, and which, you know, the cost of it does seem high, but because of the nature and type of the structure itself, it has been estimated at 200,000. So we are looking for 100,000 for the Fort Hill Park bandstand restoration from the Landfill Community Fund, and we'll provide match funding at a cost, and it is included in our estimates. The second element of the application to Landfill Community Fund is towards Enniskillen and Rangers Football Club for a recreational space for all. They have proposals to transform a piece of waste ground beside their car park into a community multi-sport pitch, which will be able to cater for a range of sporting and recreational activities, not just for the soccer club itself, but for the full wider community. And the third element, Chair, is in relation to St Michael's track ball stops. You will remember that we were successful in a funding application to the Your School Your Club in relation to the track around the St Michael's for a tartan track, which opened last year. Insurers of the grounds at St Michael's have indicated that users can't use the track and the actual new 3G pitch, which was created there too, because of the possibility of a ball going across and hitting someone who is running around the track at the same time. So the programming of usage can't be made to its full capacity. The track can only be in use when there is nobody on the 3G pitch and vice versa. The solution to it is in relation to ball stops along each side of the track. There are ball stops at each end for the goals, but this would be along each side of it, and it's at a cost of, it's been estimated at a cost, and quotes have been got for 28,000, and it is because it is for total community use. And I have to say the track is well used by a number of running clubs in the area, and indeed a number of football clubs in the area for training purposes. For 28,000 in order to make full use of the pitch and the track at one time. So therefore, Chair, it's recommended that the Council approves an application of £100,000 from the Landfill Community Fund for Fort Hill Park Bandstand conservation, approves the application for 35,000 from the Landfill Community Fund for a contribution towards the Enniskillen Rangers Football Club project, and thirdly, approves an application for 28,000 from the Landfill Community Fund to allow the purchase and installation of ball stops at St Michael's Running Track. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. First up to speak is Councillor Paul Blake.
Yeah, thanks for that, Victor. I'd be happy to propose the recommendation, but just the concern around the bandstand at Fort Hill, because I know how much of a focal part it is for the town to have Fort Hill Park, and I know there was the number of concerns raised about the work that was carried out there at a cost, I think, of 200,000. But now it's regarding the work that's required for the bandstand, and maybe John could provide more clarity on it. If they're saying that underneath the paintwork there is erosion taking place from water, could it get to the stage that after further investigation that they might find that the bandstand is structurally unsafe? And has it ever been investigated a new bandstand, and what would be the cost associated with that? Regarding the other proposals around Enniskillen Rangers and the ball stops at St Michael's track, I'd be happy to support them. Definitely, if it continues with community use around the 3G pitch and the running track at the same time, then something like that is great to hear. So it's just regarding the bandstand, if maybe John could provide a wee bit more clarity on that. Thanks, but happy to propose.
Chair, just in relation to the bandstand, initial work has been undertaken from the conservation architects in relation to the bandstand, and whilst the work is quite significant, it is felt that 200,000 would enable the bandstand to survive for many years to come, and so therefore it is recommended that this piece of work does take place. I suppose if we leave it for another 10 years, then we could get to a stage where it becomes critical. And like I say, it is a heritage asset, and therefore, you know, it would be important that we try and maintain that heritage asset as much as we can in its current format, rather than looking at something that is new, a new bandstand, for example, for the park itself.
Okay, next up we have Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Chair. Well, like Councillor Blake, I was going to ask a question in around the bandstand, but I'm more than happy with John's answer on that. So with that in mind, I'm happy to second the recommendations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McAffrey.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, welcome this funding coming out, and it's and the information around the bandstand, and again the two sports facilities. John, I wonder if you could explain section 2, and it says that the available bonds to a target of 1.5 times the previous contributions from Entrust. Does that mean that there's more funding available coming into this year from this fund? And I understand that the application is done through the Ulster Wildlife Fund. It seems to be very poorly. People are ask me questions about it, but they're not actually sure how they actually access it, and it seems quite difficult. And was there problems in the past? Apparently, there was problems in the past with accessing this fund.
Yeah, Chair, there are certain rules with regard to access, and you'll be aware that it has to be within the 10-mile radius of our landfill site. In relation to how we access funds, I do plan to bring a report through next month in relation to how community groups and community organisations can actually gain access to the Landfill Community Fund projects. So, Chair, if Councillor McAffrey would bear with me for a month, I do hope to have a report tabled at next month's R&C in relation to a new process by which would be made totally wide and totally open and transparent for all community groups and organisations within the 10-mile radius of what would be Dromee here in Fermanagh.
Can I come back there, Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, John. I think that's really what people are asking for, and I think you've addressed my issues. I mean, I wasn't really expecting a full reply tonight, and the fact that you're already it's in process, that we're going to hear next month exactly what this will entail. So thank you very much.
Councillor McElduff.
Thank you, Chair. Again, just John has partly explained it there, I think, but without knowing that 10 miles rule within a landfill site, my obvious question would have been, how come 3 projects are all inside one of the 7 district electoral areas within the council? So maybe just to ask it on the record, why is it just that one of the 7 DEAs benefits from this community fund? Thank you.
And Chair, that is solely in relation to the rules with regard to the landfill community site and the 10-mile radius of the landfill site that we have. So, it is really only that, well, I suppose other areas, other DEAs have also, within the 10-mile radius, have also taken advantage of it, but it would be largely, in fact, it would be holistically 10 miles of radius within Drumee.
Thank you.
Okay. The recommendations have been proposed and seconded on paper I. Is everybody happy with those? Councillor McAleer?
Sorry, Chair, it was just one pet peeve, I suppose, in relation to the use of spelling and grammar throughout the document. Seemingly there's a hit and miss use of the apostrophe throughout. So just going back for correctness whenever it's being reviewed, 1.1, 1.4 and 2.5, could an apostrophe please be inserted into St. Michael's? I'd appreciate that. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I take it your hands up by mistake, Councillor O'Cuff or Councillor McAffrey.
Sorry, Chair, I forgot to.
Okay. Well, you've heard that it's proposed and seconded. Is everybody happy with the recommendations? Okay, we will go on to item 6.3.
Chair, Councillor McAleer reminded me of Councillor Seamus Shields, the late Councillor Seamus Shields. Seamus Shields said one time that he was a member of the AAA, the Aberrant Apostrophe Association.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Yes, 6.3 is in relation to two reasons. One is to seek support for a Peace Heroines project being developed by the Horse Story movement and to provide a letter of support for a funding application to the National Lottery Heritage Fund for the project itself. The Horse Story movement, members will probably be aware, was founded in 2016 and portrays the stories of modern, historic and indeed mythical women that provide role models in society and to provide education resources in schools and so on, so that the public can learn from such women. And we have supported the Horse Story movement in lighting up of our buildings in the past. They are developing a new project, Peace Heroines, which will include working with schools and working with communities, and will conclude with an exhibition and education programme that explores the pivotal role that women played in the peace process and how they collaborated across borders, political and religious divides. And it is funded from the Department of Foreign Affairs Reconciliation Fund and the EU Erasmus Plus project. There will be an exhibition in partnership with the National Museums, NI, which will focus on the outcomes of the project itself. And it will be launched at the Northern Ireland Assembly on International Peace Day on the 21st of September. And there will be education programs, and our community services officers will work with Horse Story in order to work with community groups and with schools in order to create those stories for our district here. Our participation in it could involve hosting of an exhibition in Enniskillen Castle or the Struhl Arts Centre, and the details of that has yet to be worked out. They are planning to make an application for funding from the National Lottery Heritage Fund, and they've requested a letter of support from the council as part of that funding application to support the community murals element of the project. And also the work within schools from an educational point of view. The second element of the report is to gain approval from members to provide funding to both Oma Volunteer Centre and Oma Now in Enniskillen to help them organise events for Volunteer Week, which runs from the 1st to the 7th of June. Members will certainly be, and I know what has been portrayed in the chamber in the past, of the fantastic work which volunteers have been involved in, especially over the last number of years. Whilst COVID was with us and was with its height, and to assist both Oma Volunteer Centre and Oma Volunteer Now, in order for them to help hold events to celebrate the work of volunteers. It's proposed to provide £1,500 each to each organisation in order to help them with the costs associated with the events and recognise the support that volunteers have had within our community. So therefore, Chair, it's recommended that the council approves the participation in the Horror Story Peace Heroines project, that approves a letter of support from Fermanagh and Omagh District Council for the project to aid in a funding application to the National Lottery Heritage Fund, and approves an allocation of £1,500 to Oma Volunteer Centre and to Volunteer Now Enniskillen for the costs associated with running events during Volunteer Week from the 1st to 7th of June. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, first up we have Councillor Dayton.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to John for his very comprehensive report there. I want to propose the recommendations in their entirety. I think the Her Story Heroines project is absolutely fantastic. I think it's often not realised or acknowledged publicly, the role that women have played in many, many areas in building peace in our community. And that is something to be celebrated. And it's something that we can celebrate in such diverse ways as John has presented in his report this evening. So I'm fully in support of that. And secondly, then, just to acknowledge the sterling work that has been carried out by volunteers within our community, particularly during COVID-19. They really, really rose to the challenge of the pandemic. And I think that's something to be acknowledged. And we're very grateful to the volunteers for that. And I think the small amount of funding that we are proposing tonight is wholly appropriate, and I support it 100%. So I want to propose the recommendation, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Deacon. Next up, we have Councillor Thornton.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I fully support exactly what Councillor Deacon has stated there, and I'm very willing to second her proposal for the recommendations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we have Councillor McElduff.
Yep, Chair, I wonder, is it appropriate to suggest the name of a local person who should feature in that study or exhibition? If so, Alice Milligan, buried at Drumragh Old Graveyard, Methodist church member, strong Irish national outlook, brilliant book written about her by Sheila Turner Johnson called Alice, A Life of Alice Milligan, and she would be an iconic historical figure. Catherine Morris from the University of Liverpool has did a lot of research on her. In fact, she is acknowledged in a current exhibition at the Strule Centre, very tastefully at the Strule Art Centre at this time. So I'm making a suggestion, if it's appropriate, it may or may not be, that Alice Milligan be included in this. Thank you, Chair.
Are you making that as a proposal, Councillor McElduff?
Yes, I propose, yep.
Okay. And that has been seconded by Councillor McAleer, I take it. Emmett, yes?
Yeah, Chair, happy enough to second that proposal. Thank you.
Okay. John?
Yeah, Chair, that's fine. We'll put forward Alice Milligan for consideration by the Horse Story organisation. We'll certainly bring it to the fore.
Okay. Well, you've heard that both the recommendations on the report proposed and seconded on Councillor Michael Duff's proposal that we include this lady Milligan. Is everybody happy with that? Okay, that's the end of that. We'll move on now to item number 7, and again, I'll remind you that these reports are for information only. The first one up is 7.1.
Thank you, Chair. So 7.1 really outlines a proposal of application notice for change of use from agricultural land to industrial use at Duggery Industrial Estate, Bankmore Road, Omagh, and the recommendation is that the council notes the receipt of the proposal of application notice.
Okay, Councillor Thornton.
I propose we note the proposal of application notice. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Have I a seconder for that? Does anybody want to second the noting of that? Councillor O'Coffey, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the next item, which is 7.2, which is the Northern Ireland Audit Office Planning in Northern Ireland, Paper L.
Thank you, Chair. So this report again is for information. We did previously report on the findings of the Audit Office report on the Northern Ireland planning system, and that report was considered by the Public Accounts Committee, which has now published its report as outlined in Appendix 1, and this report provides members with a summary of the PAC report and findings. There are a number of next steps outlined, and this is a matter which has been considered by the Strategic Planning Group. And we held a workshop in terms of involvement across DFI councils and a range of statutory consultees to start to consider the way forward. There will be wider consideration of that regional approach, and we'll be able to keep members updated on the approach which emerges from that. And alongside that, we will be looking at a local level around reviewing our processes, reviewing past decisions, and how we can take measures to improve quality of application submissions. And it's recommended the council notes the report on the Public Accounts Committee recommendations, and officers continue to engage in regional discussions with DFI and other councils to develop an approach to delivering improvements to the planning system alongside delivery of a local improvement project.
Okay, Councillor McAleer.
Sorry, Chair, just getting unmuted there. Yeah, happy enough to note the report, but I would like to make a proposal off the back of it too. The summation that we've got in front of us, it says, as is stated in paragraph 35 of the report, that it's clear that the current planning system simply isn't working. I know a number of members within the council were called to give evidence or did give evidence at the hearing up in Stormont. I listened in to some of the evidence that was given by another group from the Derry and Strabane area called the Gathering, and I was particularly impressed with them. There was a collection, I think, of 4 individuals who gave, including a former planner, Dean Blackwood. And I would be minded that we would actually extend an invite to the Gathering to Dean Blackwood to see if he would come down and just run through some of the stuff that he spoke on that particular day up in Stormont. I think, I know I can't remember the exact term, but it was something along the lines of professional corruption. It was quite serious and quite startling from someone who used to work in that area that was the language that was being used. And obviously the report is very critical of the planning system. Many of the issues are rising out of the result of the planning being under-resourced and councils being given a system that couldn't work. It's noted that there's a combination of inadequate funding, a lack of plan-making skills within councils, and insufficient understanding of the complexity. It refers of the LDP process. at the point of transfer that's resulted in no council having improved an LDP 7 years later. So there's still issues there. But in relation to transparency, consistency, I think this is something that's hugely, hugely important. The report, I don't think the importance of this report can be overstated. So I could honestly speak on this all night, but I'm aware of the time and I'm one eye on the clock here, and aware of the pressures that you're under, Chair. So I'd just like to make that as a proposal that we do invite the gathering down and see if Mr. Blackwood would come down and address the council in relation to the evidence given at the Stormont Committee. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor McElduff.
Chair, I'd be concerned in particular about recommendation 7 on pages 10 and 11. It's over 2 paragraphs. It's clear to me that the mood music is very bad and that DFA and other players are making threatening noises to us about rural planning. If you look at what they're saying that it's inconsistent, that some councils are applying it in a dissatisfactory way, all that kind of stuff. I think they're attacking us in Fermanagh and Omagh District Council because we have a particular rural character, and within the policy we try our best, to accommodate people who are seeking a house in very, very limited circumstances in a rural setting. We operate within the policy, but we should have room to tweak the policy. And in here, they're telling us that one size fits all. So I would like to reject recommendation 7 outright, and it comes hot on the heels of a report from the auditor. So I don't know whether the PEAC is in existence at this time. It might be different than a statutory committee in one sense, but if they still exist, then I propose that we write to the PAC as a council rejecting recommendation 7.
Okay. Councillor Thornton.
I will second that proposal by Councillor McElduff.
Okay. We go back to... Okay, you've heard it proposed and seconded that we go back to the PSC on this. Is everybody agreed with that? Okay, that's passed. We'll move on to item 7.3.
Chair, if I could maybe just include in that recommendation to note the recommendations as outlined also.
Are you happy enough to note the correspondence in your proposal?
Sorry, Chair, I wish to dissent from that previous judgment, and I note Councillor O'Coffey has his hand up as well. Thank you.
Okay.
Chair, I wanted to abstain from that previous and also second Councillor McAlea's proposal. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. We will. Okay. Well, we will take the proposal by Councillor McElduff, seconded by Councillor Thornton, with the dissension of Councillors McAlea and O'Coffey. Is everybody else happy with that? And we will also then take the proposal from Councillor McAlea, seconded by Councillor O'Coffey, that we invite the group in the stated by Councillor McAlea. Is everybody happy with that?
Sorry, Chair. No, not really. Councillor Irvine.
Okay. Is there anybody else dissenting? Councillor Thornton. And
Rainey as well.
Councillor Rainey. Well, I think then we best thing to do then There's Earl, there's a load of
Chair,
dissension.
can I call for a recorded vote then, please, if that's the direction it's going? Thank you.
Okay, we'll set up a vote. And
Sorry,
time is
in the chamber, Chair, before you go to a vote, Councillor Maguire.
Sorry, Councillor Maguire's.
Good morning, Victor. Again, I find myself not for the first time in a position of having to ask, who are we inviting? For what purpose? And is it of some significance to this council that these people attend to speak to us? Well, it's just a totally ad hoc request put in with absolutely no information, and it's very difficult to make a decision on who we invite in and who we don't without knowing who they are.
Okay, Councillor McAleer.
Just because some expert whistles.
Yes, Chair, thank you.
Sorry,
I
Chair.
notice you've given my name. Chair, actually,
Sorry,
I'm
Chair,
speaking now. Councillor Maguire, you can't talk over the top of us when you're not in the big seat tonight.
Sorry, settle now. Settle down.
Yes, Chair, my name was called. Thank you, Councillor Maguire. Appreciate your input as always. But page 31, page 31 of the report, it clearly states that they give evidence. Obviously, you mustn't have had time to read the entirety of the report or kept up to speed with what was going on in relation to this hugely important issue. That's disappointing, but unfortunately doesn't excuse the fact that they're a very relevant group and they have a very valid point to make. So it would be very good to hear from all sides concerned. Thank you.
Councillor Maguire.
Sorry, Chair, I hadn't actually finished the contribution when I think it was actually the Chair cut across me, but
I apologise.
Thanks for that, Victor. No problem. I understand. It's not easy when you're at home, but as Councillor McAleer has already indicated, these people have made a submission, and I'm sure their contribution was considered in this report. So I'm quite at a loss to know what benefit it would be to ourselves in our particular council.
Chair, if I could come back in.
No, Emmett, no.
So again, I'd require further clarification before I'd support such a request.
Right, we're going to, there's obviously been dissension and there's been a recorded vote.
Chair, if I could
sorry, Kim?
If it's possible, just to comment, Chair, that we have taken a position previously that we do meet only with properly constituted groups. And I'm not sure, there's a reference to this group as the gathering. I'm not sure if it's a collective of individuals or if it's a properly constituted group, and that might be something in line with our previous approach that members might want to clarify.
Okay. Councillor McClarty, your hand's up there. I'm looking at time. Your hand's down now. Look at, I think the best thing to do here, there's been
Councillor Curry on the chamber chair.
Councillor Curry.
Ms. Gormagada Kerley, can I just propose then that we do clarify whether or not the group is constituted or not in line with our policy? Chair, if we could also make the point that this jumping in and shouting all over people in a very sneery kind of a way, can I just say, Chair, that myself and actually a number of other councillors find this kind of behaviour really threatening. It's bullying. I was speaking to other women councillors in particular who find this aggression very upsetting. So I'd ask the councillor and sometimes councillors who keep and continue just engaging in this kind of behaviour to please stop. Just stop it. Thank you.
Okay. We don't want to get into and say, I don't want to see stuff popping up in chat. With that, we have reached our time. It's quite obvious, and I think I'll make a ruling on this. And Kim, please guide me if I'm wrong on this. I'll make a ruling that we find out if this group, their status, and if they're a group that we are able to invite in. I'm not going to go ahead with the vote. We will find out more information on the group, and if it's a case where we can invite them in, we will do that. or we will put certainly the proposal to the committee, and we will move on from there. So that is the end of that subject. And looking at the agenda, and there is no doubt there's other areas on it that is likely to cause a lot of debate. And with that, I am going to call this meeting to a close. So thank all the members for their attendance. We have a special RNC at the end of this month. But in the meantime, thank you all for your attendance tonight, and for mostly well-behaved meeting. Good night.
Thank you, Chair.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks,
Victor.
Victor.
Good night, Chair.
Chair, all the best.
Thanks, Chair.
Night, Victor.
Hey, Hawaii. Thanks, Chair. Good man.